the craft is the tool of the art, or rather, the craft is the vehicle of the art, right? At the end of the day, I have to know how to physically write a screenplay. I have to know the craft of the screenplay. Mm-hmm. You have to know how to write a scene, not even just formatting, but how to construct a scene, how to construct a story, how to write something that actors can perform, etc. But in understanding the craft and in putting in your hours of becoming a craftsman, then can the art speak.
Welcome to the first episode of Pancom Podcast of the calendar year 2022. And it is such a sight to see Nick talking into his ball tickler again. I am ecstatic to be back. I am fucking, wow.
You're feeling that good about it?
Whoo-wee! This is the first podcast I think we've ever done on a Saturday.
Oh, yeah?
That just proves how important you are.
Oh, wow. Well, that's nice.
Yeah, you're kind of a big deal.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. And our guest today, I'm going to introduce the guest. My good friend since we were 7 years old.
Oh, probably maybe 5 or 6.
5?
Kindergarten is 5.
Kindergarten. We met in kindergarten. We had matching haircuts. We were the best of friends. And now, at a very old age, at a ripe age, we are still friends.
Ripe.
My friend Nick Zayas, everyone.
Hi, everyone.
We still don't have any sound effects because Nick is cheap as fuck, so I'm just going to keep on just...
We're going to have to distinguish the Knicks here.
Yeah, I'm just going to have to keep on... Oh, well, Mr. Jiménez. Mr. Jiménez and Nicholas Zayas. Welcome to the show, Mr. Zayas.
Thanks so much, man.
Nick, shockingly, is actually a listener of this podcast.
Yes, I was telling the other Nick earlier that...
It's Mr. Jiménez.
I was telling Mr. Jiménez earlier that Pancom Podcast got me through a lot of the worst of quarantine in Los Angeles because there was something very cathartic to hearing... Whoa, Chef Mike almost fell over.
I've fallen.
We almost lost.
Nick set me up for failure. I got it.
Thank you so much.
It's Mr. Jiménez.
Yeah, you're right.
That there was something very cathartic about hearing Chef Mike just rant and rage every week about the intricacies of the hard things that happen when you're trying to keep a restaurant open during a pandemic.
Yeah.
And for some reason, your rage felt very cathartic to me.
I love that. Yeah. My rage is a lot of people's rage, I think.
I told Nick that you're like the Rush Limbaugh of chef podcasts.
Wow.
Yes.
I don't know if I'm flattered or incredibly
disgusted.
insulted.
I love it.
Yeah, no shit, you love it.
Utterly
I believe
disgusted.
it. Well, Nick, let's cheers to the
Cheers,
first
brother.
day of 2022.
I know, man. Let's do this right.
We are, I am several cocktails deep already. We just finished a service. Not just, okay, because I'm several cocktails deep. It's been quite a long day, and I'm very excited to sit with my good friend. And actually, I have a small story before we get into your life story, which I was part of some of your life.
Yes.
So this is during quarantine, I believe. And I'm pretty stoned. I'm sitting on my couch, and if you listen to this show enough, you know that I'm a sci-fi guy and I'm a Trekkie, right? And the previous time that Nick had visited Ariat with his parents, which I love dearly, they're two of the sweetest people that you will ever meet, was probably a year and a half prior to that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
it was in 2017.
Wow. You said, I'm writing for this like little sci-fi show. We're working on it. It's like thing. I said, oh man, that's cool. Sci-fi show. That's what.
Yeah.
Didn't tell me anything else about it. So I'm sitting on my couch, pretty stoned. I watch an episode of Picard. It was a great episode. Then it says who wrote the episode, and it says Nick Zayas. And I go, wait a second. So I pause it. I rewind it. I watch it again. I go, Nick Zayas. I mean, like, that's like not a common name.
Yeah.
And so I remember I took a picture, and I know there's a 3-hour time difference, so I was anticipating that you were awake, and I sent you a picture, and I go, hey, fuckface, is this you?
Oh, yeah.
And you were like, yeah. And I'm like, what the fuck do you mean? You wrote an episode of Picard, and you didn't fucking tell me. And then your response was a picture of the back of Patrick Stewart's head.
Yeah.
He was sitting in the chair in front of you on set, and I was pissed.
Yeah.
I was pissed. Because I'm a Next Generation fan very deeply. I grew up on that show. I still watch it because it therapeutically puts me to sleep, engage, always.
Oh,
means
man.
just go right the fuck to bed.
Total comfort.
And it's like, and then my friend that I've known for fucking over 30 years wrote a show with this guy that's a fucking legend.
Yeah, man. It's a dream come true, dude. It's crazy.
It's my dream come true, and nothing even happened to me.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, man.
Fuck.
You know, it's funny because actually, I think it was 2018 probably when I saw you. It was probably like a Christmas in 2018 or 2019. But yeah, you know, my experience working on Star Trek was interesting. So I worked on Star Trek Picard for the last 2 seasons, right? And
There's only 2 seasons, right?
there's only 2 seasons. There's going to be a third, but I couldn't join them for the third.
Okay.
But there's something fascinating in working on Star Trek and telling people that you're working on Star Trek, which is you start to discover how many people you know are Star Trek fans. I have this theory that within any group of 5 human beings in the world, at least one of them is a Star Trek fan, and you won't even know it.
I believe it.
You just say, I'm working on Star Trek Picard, and the most random people, their eyes will light up, and they're like, and everyone has this deep, especially in our generation, this deep emotional connection to why they're a Star Trek fan.
Yeah.
For me, I watched Next Generation with my father, my grandfather, and my uncle, like every Saturday night, because we had Saturday night dinner at my abuela's house, right? And then the guys would retire into the other room, and we'd watch Next Generation.
Amazing.
And there's something to the character of Jean-Luc Picard being this kind of like the safest human being that you could ever like feel that, like if Picard is your captain, you for some reason you suddenly feel safe.
Oh,
right?
you're safe.
Right?
You're good.
And I just remember, you know, my dad is like a bald guy, kind of like Patrick Stewart. So I remember being a kid and just like transposing like Picard to my father, like thinking of like when I see Jean-Luc Picard, I would just immediately just like project my father onto that character, right? So lots of people have these very deep, nostalgic, emotional connections to this series and that character, and it's been a pleasure to see people's eyes light up, right? Working on the show. Now, then it's also terrifying when
For sure.
it's you and the laptop, and you're like, I'm about to write an episode of Picard. I'm about to write the episode of Picard where Jean-Luc Picard steps onto a Borg cube for the first time since...
Heavy. Heavy.
Yeah.
That's heavy.
Yeah,
If you
man.
know, we've lost so many people. So many people have already tuned
Yeah,
out.
goodbye,
The
folks.
other 4, you said one out of every 5.
Yeah.
The other 4 have tuned out, and they're not even paying attention.
I bet you we have a Star Trek fan in Salina, Kansas, though.
This episode of Pan Con Podcast is brought to you by The Barrel. This is the barbecue grill that, if you're watching this in video form, is in front of us. We're here with Chef Danny Boza. Danny, tell us a little bit about what the genesis of this thing was. Where does The Barrel come from?
You know, I was a chef. I was working for a civil engineering firm before that, and I really hated everything that I was doing at the time. So I've always had a passion for cooking. And then, you know, I decided one day to move to New York, and everything took off from New York, Chicago, Hong Kong, LA, you know, Colorado, and then to Hawaii, and then back to Miami. And then I opened up my own spot in Coral Gables, sold the restaurant, and moved on to the next bigger, better thing. Obviously, COVID hit, so we had our own passion project. It started because a friend, was now a business partner, Diego Londoño, approached me to do a menu for his coffee shop. And I said, you know, let's go to Colombia. I got to see the tree. I got to, you know, feel it out, get a little inspiration. So I went out there, and then, you know, I tried some of the food when I got there, and I was blown away by the flavor. I found out they were actually cooking with the actual coffee tree. And then I saw their South American style roaster, and it was just really dinged up, beat up oil drum. Yeah. And I said, you know what? I can make something that's really cool. So myself and Diego put our heads together, and you know, it's a home run in my opinion. It's very sleek, very beautiful to look at. It's very, very cool.
It's a conversation starter. People see that in your yard and they want to talk about it.
Yeah, definitely people see it. And again, we're not trying to take over anybody's yard. We're trying to make it a compliment to it. So what you would do on your regular grill for something very quick, you might want to say on a weekend, I got more time, I don't want to chill out, and, you know, use the barrel and create some beautiful flavors out of that with our hardwood lump charcoal.
Do you remember what some of the first things you did with it when you were maybe like prototyping it, or you had it close to final form?
Yeah, actually, I'll keep it short. So one of the main things is that our base was simply just the base. It was just a very plain base. And in order to stop all the fat that was dripping and rendering, I would use sand around the side. But of course, even some of the best chefs in the world make some of the greatest mistakes. So I would drop some of the food directly on the sand, and there's no getting sand off food once it hits it. So we had to think of a different system. So now we created these 2 half-moon systems at the base in which you can add liquid and have a grate on top, which pretty much sets this apart from any other, grill, roaster, smoker, which, the 3-in-1 combo is not really commonly found out there.
Very cool. So if people want to learn more, if people want to buy this thing, how do they get more information about the barrel?
I would say go to our Instagram page, at Barrel the BBQ. And, you can go and see our link tree there, which has our YouTube channel, our order page, our information, our specs about the barrel. And it has a bunch of fun videos and very cool things that we've cooked out of it so far.
Very cool. And once you're there, if you use promo code PANCON10, that's PANCON10, PANCON, because I know a lot of people have trouble with this who don't speak Spanish. We've been called Pumpkin Podcast, the Panko Podcast. This is PANCON10 for $100 off of the barrel. Thanks, man.
Awesome. Thank you.
This episode of Pancon Podcast is also brought to you by Elite Impact Windows. Elite Impact Windows does exactly what it sounds like they do. They are purveyors of impact windows. That's the kind that, especially if you're in a hurricane-prone sort of area, you want so stuff doesn't come flying through your windows. Mike, you have impact windows on some of your restaurants.
Listen, I heard a rumor. Tell me if this is true. Are all their products tested to go up to 185 mile per hour wind pressures?
That is how their products are tested. That's all their products are tested to meet that. I don't know. I've never been out in 185 mile an hour wind. But if I were, I think I might want to wear some of these windows as like a suit.
I feel safer already just thinking about if I was walking around in that kind of wind and I was wrapped around with their just windows just wrapped around me, I'd feel like a much safer person.
Yeah, you should put them on your caddy.
Maybe not. But I also heard that they meet all the requirements of Miami-Dade County.
They do meet all the requirements of Miami-Dade County.
Fuck me, that's amazing.
EliteImpactGlass.com or on Facebook, Elite Impact Windows, Instagram, Elite Impact Glass. They are proud partners with Eco Windows, CGI, and Windoor.
One of the things I really appreciate about them and their company is that all their products are made locally here in South Florida, and fuck me, that's amazing.
Look at this. They are all made here in South Florida.
Did you do your research?
Man, I did not do the research.
Somebody didn't show up ready.
They have competitive pricing with totally 0% financing available. I mean, I don't know if you have credit like mine, you might not get 0% financing, but it may be an option. It's possible that that's an option for you. 0% financing. I don't know exactly how that works. Whatever the case, if you go on the website, you ask for a quote, and you mention Pancon Podcast, you will get 10% off of your installation.
And I don't know if you guys have ever installed Windows before, but 10% off of window installation, that's a good fucking deal. And you know what? You got it here first on Pancon Podcast.
That's right. Mention Pancon Podcast. Again, it's EliteImpactGlass.com or Elite Impact Windows on Facebook, Elite Impact Glass on Instagram. By the way, you mentioned restaurants. They do commercial properties. So whether it's for your home or your business, if you need Elite Impact Glass to put, all that and do the things that they do so well, you wanna get in on that.
Also, this company, very woke. Very woke. They also offer solar power systems with backup batteries and custom generators for your home. You know why? Because they're woke.
I don't know if that's a positive thing these days to be woke, but but it's nice. I mean,
sounds good.
It sounds good to me that there's solar power involved.
I'm into it.
Generators, solar power, impact glass. If you go to their website, they got a video that shows off like a home that has all of that stuff going on at one time, which is pretty wild. That's pretty wild. A lot of panels, a lot of glass, a lot of things. Pretty soon, we are going to get our hands on at least one pane of impact glass.
I'm ready.
And we're going to try to break it.
I'm ready.
I don't know what the procedure will be, but Mike's breath will have a blast of freshness from that Banaka you just heard. I like this for the podcast. You can really
Banaka blast at last. Fast blast Banaka.
I just want everybody to know, and apologies to Elite Impact Glass, because this I don't want this to sound like an ad for Banaka, but in the time that we've been sitting here to record this ad, Mike has blasted himself with Banaka like 5 times.
Twice.
I don't know, man.
Twice.
I don't know.
Come on. Twice.
Elite Impact Glass. Thanks to our sponsor.
Thanks.
Go get your windows from.
Go get those windows. I don't. Nick, is your sister a fan of Star Trek?
She was in the same boat I was, so she watched all of it.
Yeah, but she didn't like it.
Exposed.
She's exposed. She was exposed.
Yes.
And like the idea of Jean-Luc Picard getting back onto a Borg cube like that is, I'm petrified of that.
Yeah.
Can't lose him again.
Yeah, no, definitely. And so it was.
Can't lose him again.
It was. Yeah, it was fascinating to like go back and rewatch like First Contact and those great Star Trek movies, and then every episode that Picard was in where he went onto a Borg cube, and we knew that he was going to be meeting up with Hugh, who was played by Jonathan Delarco, that character from iBorg, which is one of my favorite Star Trek episodes ever. And just being like, I'm going to bring these two characters together, and I'm going to put Picard on a Borg cube, and now this is my responsibility. And I'm just some guy sitting in my apartment in Los Angeles, and I got to walk my dog in 2 hours, and maybe I should go to Starbucks. But then, for some reason, I've got the keys to drive this billion-dollar franchise around the block, you know? It's like somebody tosses you the keys to a Rolls Royce and then like take it around the block, and I'm like, all right, here we go. You know.
Well, it's also like Star Trek fans, very similar to Star Wars fans. They're a different type of fan.
Yeah.
Usually, but they are similar in their dedication to being a fan.
Yes.
And me, as much as I love Star Trek growing up with it, I'm a fair weather fan in comparison to the real Star Trek fans.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Like the real Star Trek fans are fucking like they know things that I could never know, and I will never know, and I'll never take the time to know, and they know them all.
Yeah. Oh,
so
yeah.
it's like a lot of stress.
Oh, yeah, and they'll call you out on it. Oh,
For
man.
sure.
Oh, man. We had this person on staff named Kirsten Beyer, and she's written a lot of Star Trek novels, and she was kind of like our Star Trek expert on the staff to just be like a walking encyclopedia of the canon.
I want to talk to this person.
She's cool. She's really cool, man.
Nick,
She's
can you
great.
set it up?
Yeah.
Come on, Nick. Let's go. You need to pick it up.
Great. But, yeah, the fans are devoted, and there's people who have, like, I mentioned my deep emotional connection to it. There's millions of stories of people who have their own deep, like, it's tied to their identity. People who speak Klingon, people who just, you know, and people who just adopted the ethos of Starfleet too.
Yeah,
like people who, I mean, just recently, I found a copy of Gene Roddenberry's Bible for, show Bible for Next Generation. Now, a show Bible is something that a writer in TV writes toward the beginning of, after they write a pilot for like a show, which lays out like, these are the characters, these are the kind of stories that will go on over many seasons, and these are the themes that we're going to discuss. And reading Gene Roddenberry's Bible for Next Generation is astounding, because you see so much just like a philosophy toward how human beings should interact.
Oh, yeah.
You know, whether it's the Prime Directive or whether it's, you know, going boldly to seek out new knowledge.
Yeah.
And then you have Picard to be this emissary, right? He is our representative of our human race, you know, going out there and
so
meeting
good.
these aliens and these other peoples and then trying to do the right thing.
Well, I mean, Star Trek and like so many of these sci-fi things are just really a story that's supposed to be similar to a story we all live every day.
Yes.
Right? It's supposed to be similar to our regular everyday life. It's just a very space-oriented version
Yes.
of what we live every day.
Yeah.
So it's like the idea of Star Trek is, in essence, meeting new people, accepting like a difference of opinion or a difference of where you come from, and then trying to find a commonality and trying to be friends.
Yes.
That is, if you want to break it down into dummy terms
Yeah.
of what Star Trek really means, that's like the Next Generation. That's what it meant.
It's
And you know, like, I mean, that's pretty much everyday life, right? And I think, you know, my dad's a big sci-fi guy. So my dad has all the seasons of Star Trek, Next Generation, all the Star Trek, everything, still in VHS at his house.
Wow.
You walk in and it's just it's a bookshelf of just VHSs. He doesn't even own a VHS anymore, but he still has them. And when I tell him, like, hey, Dad, these are readily available on Netflix, his response is, what's Netflix?
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, I don't know what we're doing here. He's like, he just knows he can watch it at a certain time anyways.
Yeah.
But, it's like, it's very interesting, the Star Trek fan.
Yeah.
So I could only imagine the pressure that it carries to write for a show like that, and then to tell Trekkies that you're writing for a show like that.
Yeah.
I would never tell anyone that I'm a writer for that show.
Well, it's fascinating because you feel the sense of duty to like do it right, but then also like at the end of the day, as a writer, your job is to also do something new and cool.
Yeah,
I have to do something new and different and cool as an artist, right? And so part of what we tried to do in the room on Picard, especially season 1, is to push the envelope and really challenge Picard. Like, we did not want to do like a nostalgia fan service like stroke fest of the character. And Patrick didn't want to do that either. Patrick wanted to be challenged as an actor and as a character.
Man, I would give up so many things to sit down and have a conversation with that guy.
He's a lovely guy. He's fantastic. Like,
he just seems like other than the fact that he's Jean-Luc Picard, right? He seems like he carries a lot of knowledge. Maybe it's because he's bald and he's got a perfectly bald head.
And the British thing helps. It's like, like, I'm not
They
going to lie.
automatically sound much more intelligent.
Like, any British person that comes to Los Angeles just slays. Like, it's something about, like, there's something about British people existing in the United States where we just give them immediate, like, oh, you're smart, or, oh, you're,
No, I can only imagine that you being from Miami and going to LA probably is not the same.
No, and I don't even have that much of an accent. Like, maybe even just
No, you don't carry an accent anymore.
I don't have the bro, hey, how are you, bro? Hey, bro, like, how are you, bro? Bro, it's like
before
Miami,
we continue about like your career, let's talk about kindergarten.
Let's talk about St. Teresa Catholic School.
Oh no, how I got kicked out in the 3rd grade.
I never knew that you got kicked out. I knew that one day you weren't there.
Well, that did happen. No, I mean, I didn't didn't kick me out. They were just like, we'd very much like it if you didn't return for 4th grade.
Wow, what happened? but like, what happened? Like, tell the story.
I don't know.
You don't remember?
I don't really know.
Was it grades? Did you punch somebody? What happened?
I mean, I punched a lot of people when we were kids.
Yeah.
I punched a lot of kids. I mean, I got into a ton of fights when we were young. Yeah. I mean, fuck. From like kindergarten to 3rd grade, what is that? That's like 5 to what?
4 years, right?
That's
5 to basically 10 or 9.
Yeah, I mean, I got in a ton of fights.
Yeah.
My chipped tooth that I have is still from
I remember your
St. Teresa.
chipped tooth. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. I mean, I don't remember, like, listeners, I know that Chef Mike puts on this tough guy routine.
Here we go.
But like, don't be fooled. He wasn't the bad boy of 1st, 2nd, and 3rd grade.
Wow.
Right. He was a lovely guy with
I am a lovely guy now.
with a better mushroom haircut than I ever had.
No. And we're gonna get into the haircut now. Nick and I had matching haircuts. And I don't really recall his, but I recall mine, and it was fantastic. Yeah. I had a fantastic mushroom haircut when I was a child.
I was jealous.
I was much more blonde than I am now.
Yeah.
I was like blonde, dirty blonde-ish, and that definitely went the fuck away. And like I had fantastic hair, you had fantastic hair. That changed.
It changed. Boy, did it change quickly.
It changed.
Puberty hit me. I started losing my hair.
Yeah, but you're crushing it now.
I am
Rogan?
a walking spokesman for the wonder of Propecia.
Are you?
Yes. Also known in generic terms as finasteride. I've been on this shit since I was like 18.
Shut the fuck up.
Yeah, and you know what? It works.
That's half your life, eh?
It is half my life.
Yeah, it's half your life.
If I can't have children at some point one day, it's because there must be a side effect of taking Propecia since you were in high school.
Man, so you've been using basically hair product to keep your hair thick since you were 18.
Yes. And I actually think it's worked because I'm 36 now, and people say you got a good head of hair. I'm like, thank God.
I've never. I still have a lot of hair.
You do.
That's maybe not like it. This is finely coaffed hair.
Oh, thank you.
Your hair is finely coiffed.
My God.
Yeah.
Thank you. You have no idea how much of a compliment that is because I've had un complejo about my hair.
No shit.
Ever since I was a kid.
Wow, we're getting so deep, and we're still talking about kindergarten.
I know. So, no, seriously though, I hated my mushroom haircut. It got in my face, and I always thought like it looks wrong.
Really?
Yeah, dude.
I really didn't give a fuck.
And then here's Mike Beltrán with his perfect mushroom.
Yeah.
And his devil may care attitude.
Yeah. Oh, well, you know.
Cheers.
We only live once, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, I was 10. I was a wild child.
Yeah.
So we went to kindergarten, middle school. Well, we didn't go to middle school together. Went to middle school in Miami. Went to high school together.
Yeah. Columbus.
We both went to Columbus. Graduated in 2003.
Yeah.
We're dating ourselves super hard there. We're almost at our 20-year reunion, yeah?
Oh, Jesus. Yeah, next year is 20 years.
Next year.
How did that happen?
It's a lot. It's lots happening.
My God.
And then what happened after high school?
So I graduated from high school, and I knew, since I was like 12 or 13, I knew I wanted to do TV and movies. And so I graduated from high school, and I went to Florida State to go to the film school, specifically to go to the film school. It was between Florida State and NYU. And then I visited, and I got into the film school at NYU. And I visited NYU, and I was like, you can get very poor going to NYU. Like, it's expensive, and I knew that like having to be scrappy and be a college student and pay for your own films in NYU, when Florida State is offering me to go there for free.
Right.
And there was a thing called Florida Prepaid that I don't even know if it exists anymore. But, you know.
Does it, Nick?
Florida
Mr. Jiménez?
Yeah.
It does? Mr. Jiménez says that it still exists. Florida Prepaid College still exists, everyone.
Yes. The program to pay for your kids' college like as they're growing up. Anyway, so I went to FSU practically for free. I didn't get into the film school my freshman year, but it doesn't start until your sophomore year. So you have like this 1 year as a freshman to try and get in for when it begins next year, to transfer in, right? And during that year, in my freshman year at Florida State, I hung around the film school. I volunteered on a lot of film student sets. I made friends with the faculty, and I just worked. And I wrote an essay, and I had an interview, and I got in. And then I went to film school, and it was a great experience, an interesting experience. Yeah, man.
Explain why interesting.
So film school, if you're listening to this, listener.
When you say,
Yeah.
break down film school. Like, what are we doing? Are we writing? Are we producing? Or do you pick an avenue to go into?
So at Florida State, I was in the BFA program, the bachelor program, and that program is very much a general, like, you do everything. You write your own films, you direct your own films. You have to be cameraman for a film. You have to hold the boom. You have to be a grip. You will do everything by the time you're out of there.
What is a grip?
A grip? All right, so a
It
grip.
sounds super naughty.
A grip is a person. A grip is a person on a film set that carries things. Basically, they set up. They don't set up lights, but they set up the rigs to like hold the lights. They set up any rigging for the stage. Anybody that has to be physical muscle.
Blue collar work.
Blue collar union work. Everything in Hollywood is union work. I'm a member of a union. I'm a Writers Guild. It's a bit of a bougie union, you know. I'm not carrying anything other than my laptop, right? Oof. But
fuck you guys.
Hollywood is
you struggle by yourself, bitch.
Hollywood is actually more of a blue collar. Like the people that actually make the movies, it's more blue collar than you think. You know, the electricians, the grips, the costumers, the set designers, the set decorators, the painters, all those guys. It takes a lot of people to make a TV show or a movie, and it's kind of beautiful. I had really these days the privilege of working on a TV show for 6 seasons, and there were 21 episodes a season. That was a show called Major Crimes, which was on TNT. It was a spinoff of The Closer, but man, when you know that you have year-round employment in Hollywood and you're doing 21 episodes a season and you know that you're getting like 2 season orders at once, like lots of people retired after that show. Like it's not very often in Hollywood that you can get like steady employment. It's not 9 to 5, it's more 5 to 9 than 9 to 5, but the job security is great. And I don't even think that exists anymore.
Well, I mean, the world of like television has changed completely, right?
Changed completely.
We'll get into
We'll get into that.
We're jumping the gun.
So I'm in film school. So you asked what's cool
Right.
about film school. What was great? If you're listening to this, listener, and you're wondering, like, should I go to film school?
No one listens to this, but
all
go
right,
on.
no one listens to this. But if you're wondering if you should go to film school, the answer is maybe. I don't know. But I I got value out of it because film school is all about learning how to work with people, right? There are 30 kids in our class, and these are the 30 students in which you have to make your project and their project and everyone's project. So you quickly have to learn how to collaborate. And filmmaking is all collaboration, right? And so you learn a lot of valuable lessons on how to work with people that you may not agree with. And you may be creatively completely different people with strong opinions, but you have to work together, right?
Daily life, eh?
I know, right?
Yeah.
And so that was cool and interesting. And you get to run around with a camera. And what was great about Florida State is that they pay for all the equipment, right? Even the film. And I think I was like the last
public
class.
school, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
The Florida State Seminoles. I know nothing about the football, so
I got it.
I am neutral. I don't give a shit. But I think I was even the last class to shoot on film, which was fascinating because now you just do everything digital with video. But we actually had to load film and shoot on Super 16, which was great. So anyway. But I was in film school for about 2.5 years. So I graduated December of 2006, and then it was immediately like, all right, now's the time. Let's go to Los Angeles. Let's go make our dreams come true. So I
2006?
2006 December.
Fuck, man.
Yeah.
It's a long time ago.
It was a long time. I guess so. This January is 15 years that I've lived in Los Angeles.
Wow.
Yeah.
You look like you're from Los Angeles.
Oh,
now.
thank you.
Yeah,
What is it? Is it the loafers? Is that it?
No, well, the loafers with no socks for sure,
Yeah,
which
man.
I bag on them every time I see them for that. And then it's the shirt, the buttons, and the things. They only sell those on the West Coast.
Yeah.
And it's also the jacket that's not needed right now.
I know.
But Nick still
But it
feels-
goes with the outfit. No, I'll tell you. As a 14-year-old, like one of the movies that created my personality was the movie Swingers. You ever see Swingers?
of course.
Right.
Yeah.
That movie hit me hard as a 14-year-old.
Yeah.
And suddenly I'm...
Niall with the save. Double fisting 2022. We're ready. We're prepared.
So I made it a goal to live my swingers life in Los Angeles. And now I do. I hang out at the 101 coffee shop where they shot the movie.
no shit.
I'm friends with jazz musicians. I go to listen to, swing music, and I wear retro-inspired clothes.
Isn't it interesting
Living the dream, man.
How things that we've grown up with, that we kind of admire, shape who we are as adults.
Yeah.
Whether it's like things that we read, things that we watch, things that we listen to, I think it's fascinating, like how that influences us from a young age to like our older age, and then you kind of like dial back to that when you get older and you like check back and like, yeah, I still like that shit, and you still fucking go back to it, and it's like, find it intriguing, because even though we evolve, we still know that thing that we really much like, I find that super interesting about humans in general.
Well, even just like as artists, because as artists, we constantly have to mine the field of our own soul and our memory and our lived experience.
Wow, mine the field of our own soul.
Yeah, man, you like that?
That's a T-shirt.
I'm a member of the Writers Guild.
That's our first T-shirt of 2022. That
That
we'll
is
never
union
make.
work right there.
Is that union work?
Soul Miners Against the World.
Soul Miners Against the World. Got it.
But yeah, man, but it's true. Like when I sit down in front of a computer to write a story, the audience, and you know this because you're a chef, the audience,
what people say.
whether you're tasting, a steak or whether you're watching a film, the audience has like a smell test where if it smells bad, they spit it out, right? So if you're watching a movie or a show and something feels like bullshit, like that wouldn't happen, immediately the audience is like, that's bullshit. Like a human being would never say that. This would never happen.
Time out. But there's also movies now that are created to be bullshit. Nick,
Like what?
label some of these movies that you watch with like the nuns fighting velociraptors and shit.
No, hold on. That's
Mr. Jimenez, please chime in.
We're not talking about parody here.
Yeah, I mean, but it's built to be bullshit.
Yeah, but it's comedy.
Okay.
You're not talking about parody.
No, I mean I think there is an artistic space for camp and kitsch and absurdism.
Yeah, what
like
he's-
Sharknado. Like people love Sharknado.
Yeah, what he's talking
Yeah.
about, for example, is Velocipaster.
I love this.
Velocipaster.
Please
is the,
tell
Are
me-
we
But it says-
doing a viewing at your house?
Yes.
This is open to the Pancom Podcast public.
We're sorry.
At Nick's house.
I'm having technical problems.
Here, come here. Take my mic. It's fine.
Take your microphone for a second.
It's cool. I don't
Please tell me that somebody says "clever girl" at some point in Velocipaster.
Velocipaster is the classic story of a priest who, traumatized by the brutal death of his two parents, goes on sabbatical and while on vacation has an encounter with a vaguely Asian martial artist
Vaguely Asian.
and
Not racist at all, I'm
ends
sure.
up impaled or otherwise injured by an ancient magical dinosaur claw. When he finally comes to in the morning, it turns out that he has a new life as basically like the Incredible Hulk, except instead of Bruce Banner and Big Green Guy, it's mild-mannered priest and Velociraptor. Spoiler alert. Our hero in this film ends up in a war with a gang of drug traffickers who are actually working with the Catholic Church to get people hooked on drugs.
Oh.
Specifically so that they have to come back to the church for
Is
salvation.
there coke in the Eucharist? Is that what's going on?
No, they're just slanging drugs and hoping that people go pray about it later.
Wow. Where do you watch this shit?
This is on Amazon. We're gonna there will be a very illegal film series to raise money for important causes in my backyard, but not before we kick off this film series with a movie I'm very excited about called Llamageddon, which is about a llama that comes from outer space and goes on a killing spree. Thank you very much. Back to you, Mike.
I mean, this.
I don't think that's the industry I work in, but
Somebody wrote it.
somebody wrote it. And you know
Somebody
what?
wrote it. It's
God
probably
bless
part
them.
of your union.
No, I don't know. That sounds like a lot. That sounds like Canadian non-union work.
Canadian. You're calling
Yeah.
out Canadians. Oh my god.
Yeah, that sounds like one of those
poor
Canadian
Canadians.
non-union
Those
works.
Canadians
Yeah.
are nice people, eh?
They are nice people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So,
Where were we?
2006.
Yeah.
You move. What's the
Yeah.
first thing that happens?
All right. So
Are you like by yourself in like a corner and you're just like writing in a notepad and you're like, I need a home? Like, what's happening?
No, that does not happen. That's not a thing.
It's not. That's all.
Here's
That's all movie. Somebody wrote that.
Yeah, you'll like this because it's all about the hustle, man. So
I
2 weeks before graduation, I had this book called The Hollywood Creative Directory.
Okay.
So kids, before there was, I don't know, before everything was really on the internet and you can grab everything, there was this book that the Hollywood community used to put out, which was like a phone book, right, of just the production companies in town in Los Angeles. I went through this book and I found all the production companies that made the movies I loved, and I cold call them, right? I just call them 2 weeks before graduation and say, hey, I'm graduating soon. I would like an unpaid internship at your company. And now, mind you, this was back in 2006 when you could actually do that. You can't really do that anymore. There's been a crackdown on unpaid internships, which, frankly, is justified. I had a conversation with Nick at the bar earlier where
Mr. Jiménez.
yes, with Mr. Jiménez.
Yes.
Where I don't know what I would have done. I don't know if I were entering the industry now necessarily what I would do, but back in the day, I took an unpaid intern. I'd call these places. I'd say, look, I love your movies. I'd like to be an unpaid intern. And then you hopefully get hired, and you know that like you're only going to do it for a couple months in the hope that they hire you to be an assistant or some other entry-level job, right? And so I called a couple places, and I got an unpaid internship with Scott Rudin Productions.
Wonderful article.
Oh yeah, so I sent Mike the Hollywood Reporter article.
We'll get that.
We'll
after.
get to
there.
we'll get
to
to
that.
that. I don't even know how much I can say. I'm still held under an NDA, but at the I will
Juice.
say-
We got juice here.
right? Yeah. So I got an unpaid internship with Scott Rudin in his LA office, and I also had one with George Clooney's company, Smokehouse. That was only for a couple months. But here I am, 21 years old, moving to Los Angeles, working in George Clooney's office every Tuesday and Thursday.
How stressed was your mom?
My mom was stressed, and
His mom
and
is the
yet
best.
thrilled.
Oh, yeah, I
because
believe it, I believe it.
she's wanted nothing more than for me and my sister to like achieve our dreams, because in her mind, you know, we're both geniuses, right? And the world is just waiting for our genius.
My mother says the same thing, and God bless is she wrong.
And so, so my mom helped me, you know, find an apartment and stuff like that, you know, all through Craigslist and whatnot, and calling people in LA. But I think she was happy that I was going out and finally doing the thing that I've been wanting to do for like 8 years, you know, since I was a kid. And then before I know it, I'm working in Scott Rudin's office in LA. And for the casual listener, Scott Rudin is a legendary movie producer. He produced The Firm, Clueless, Sister Act, the Addams Family movies. And then coming into the 2000s, he did There Will Be Blood, No Country for Old Men. He produced a South Park movie. On Broadway, he produced Book of Mormon. He produced Fences with Denzel Washington. He won the Oscar for No Country for Old Men. The guy is one of the greatest movie producers that ever lived. That being said, he also has a reputation of being one of the worst and hardest bosses in the film industry.
Right.
Right. And Harvey Weinstein was like the Wario to his Mario. But where Harvey Weinstein was a, you know, sexual abuser, Scott was not that. He was just a incredibly demanding and difficult boss. They've made movies about him. They made the movie Swimming with Sharks, which was partly inspired by him. And a lot of like Devil Wears Prada, I think, was inspired by Scott as well, because Meryl Streep made many movies with Scott. And everyone knows Scott, right? And so when I watch Devil Wears Prada, I'm like, yep, I've lived that before, you know, just with more screaming, right? That being said, my unpaid internship eventually became working as an assistant for Scott.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Just
Go ahead.
we won't dive too deep because you have an NDA and we can't dive too deep. But how old is Scott?
Now he's probably 60 or something like that.
I mean, do you think that the time that he came up in the industry was probably very different?
Oh, brother, yeah. He came up. He didn't even go to college. I think he didn't even graduate high school. At the age of like 15, he was working for like the angriest New York theater producers
Right.
at the time, right? At the age of 24 or 26, he was like the president of production at Fox. He was the executive on Die Hard, right? And you
Die Hard?
Yeah,
Best Christmas movie of all time?
definitely.
Yeah.
Merry
Merry Christmas, Nick. Merry Christmas, Mr. Jiménez.
He and Joel Silver and like Amy Pascal, they all like worked together back then. Back then, Hollywood was a Wild West, you know, and and he worked for Larry Gordon as a producer. And I think Larry Gordon and Barry Diller and like these guys are massive, not only producers, but media moguls. And they're probably not the easiest people to work with. The ecosystem of working in Hollywood was Wild West and hustling, right? And I think our day and age right now, the culture is having a conversation of, is this type of work culture safe and is it right? You know, and all I know is I took the job of working for Scott Rudin because I understood, because it was legend and known, that if you work for Scott and if you last 6 months to a year, you can get any job after that. And I worked there for 4 years. And I can tell you that every meeting I've taken up until this year, when these articles came out, every meeting I've taken, everyone wants a Scott Rudin story, right? Everyone wants to know like what my experience was. And I gladly tell them. And I know that like working there, I was a part of some sort of like Hollywood legend, right?
Right.
And I think this year, and with all these articles that have come out in the Hollywood Reporter, people are having the conversation of, is this abuse of your assistants? Is this ecosystem of you're lucky to have a job, if you just buckle down and work for difficult people, you will earn your place? Is that a valid? Is that even a valid like philosophy for a work environment? And I think that now, as a culture, we're saying like, no, it's an unsafe work environment. But I'll tell you, at the time when I was coming up, like, that's just part of the ecosystem, And so it's a systemic problem more than just one individual. Right. And I would tell myself, like, look, I'm going in the office at 6 a.m. I'm leaving at 8 p.m. I'm working for a very talented but very challenging movie producer. And I could be working for another asshole who is making shitty movies. But right now I'm working for a difficult boss who's making the next Coen Brothers movie, the next David Fincher movie, the next Wes Anderson movie, I
mean, I think that the real question to that is, like, do you think that he was programmed from how he came up to treat people a certain way?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I think he's a product of his environment, and I think he's a product of the ecosystem. And I think that people in the generation...
We're not talking about Harvey Weinstein.
No, Harvey Weinstein raped people. Like, Scott Rudin never raped anybody, but Scott Rudin was he was a very challenging boss, and in the articles there are allegations and stories of, and yes, he, throwing things, and of course yelling at people and whatnot. And there are reports in those articles of the times in which he actually made contact and hit somebody with the cell phone he was throwing or whatever.
Oh, I mean, you shouldn't make contact. Always go up against the wall. You always throw things up against the wall.
Always throw a thing against the wall. Yeah, but at least working there when I was there, you kind of, I knew that going in, right? It's like I made the deal. The whole movie Devil Wears Prada is about this, right? So if anyone is...
I need to watch this. I've never
seen... It's great movie.
I've never seen this movie.
The whole movie of Devil Wears Prada is Anne Hathaway knows if
Mr. Jiménez, have you watched this movie?
I don't think it's worse. Parts.
Nick is saying that... Mr. Jiménez is saying that he has watched parts of The Devil Wears Prada.
Yeah. And Devil Wears Prada is a great movie, but it's all about, like... if you understand that you are working for a very difficult person, but if you survive long enough, then people will... It's a medal that you can wear, right? And so for years, I wore my 4 years at Rudin as a medal, and now sometimes it feels like you...
Detrimental?
It feels like I won a medal to a war that never should have been fought, right?
I don't know. I mean, I feel a certain way about that.
But the people I worked with there... The people I worked with at Rudin, everyone there had a wonderful sense of humor, and there are people that I've worked with again and again throughout the years. People that were my interns that I hired are people that I've worked with. There's a woman who I hired to be my intern who is now producing a movie that I'm writing, And so I think working there attracted a lot of talented, ambitious people who then went on to do wonderful things, and I don't know, it's kind of like... the people you're in the trenches with. That being said, the last year I've been grappling with the fact that, it probably was not a great work environment. It's not like Hollywood, maybe
But did you learn from that environment?
I learned everything from that environment. I mean,
it
was Hollywood boot camp.
Was it that bad?
That's a very hard question to answer.
I mean, I'm just saying, because I lived a lot of very difficult, tough years in the kitchen.
Sure.
And were they the best work environment? No. Were they are they what society considers like what it should be today? Absolutely not. Do I want it? Like, I would never exchange it for anything. Mm-hmm. Like I find them invaluable. Like those years are what created what I do now. And yeah, they were fucking tough and they sucked. And I've been mouthy my entire life.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I feel like the culture and the idea of, like, work ethic now is very weird because it's like we want to work, but we don't really want to work. We don't really want to learn. We don't really want to be called out. Now, there's a way to do it, right? That isn't entirely, like, super fucked up, right? Like,
yeah.
I've worked for chefs that are, like, mental manipulators,
yes,
that, like, attack
emotional
you.
abusers,
yeah,
right?
that, like, attack you personally,
yes.
and like that's not cool. Like, you can go fuck yourself, right? Like, I remember I had one chef that I told him, like, hold on, time out, Gabe.
Cuba Decide is getting a little free ad space from us. This is us giving back to Cuba.
They're getting all the love they deserve.
That's right. So they gave us some talking points here. I'm going to read them, but we're going to do a little bit of riffing.
All right, yeah, cool. You read them, though.
Did you know, Michael, that the last free and fair elections in Cuba were held more than 70 years ago?
That's one of the least shocking statements I've ever heard.
Too many years.
Yeah.
Cuba wants to change. Cubans deserve to be free citizens with equal opportunities for all. Cuba Decide is a citizen initiative that is working toward a prosperous and happy Cuba, where all citizens are equal under the law and have equal access to opportunities for improvement, a democracy in which our right to choose and be chosen is respected. Mike, we had Rosa Maria Paya, founder of Cuba Decide, on the podcast. And it's a topic, obviously, that is important to the two of us, and you had a lot to say about how the being denied those rights all this time plays into your mission with Ariette and Chugs. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think the fact that we haven't, as I think a community, as a culture, as being Cubans and Cuban Americans, the fact that we haven't had an opportunity to grow, haven't had the opportunity to progress and to be really who we are, has really shaped a lot of what I decided to, like, my personal mission to be. And meeting people like Rosa Maria and like several others like her in this process have nothing but solidified that goal for me. And to know that, I think one thing, I think it also happens a lot in our age group, feeling like you're alone in that process, feeling like that you're the only one that kind of feels, I guess, a sense of being lost, because you don't really know where you came from, why you're here, all those things. But in reality, there's other people living the same kind of life, and not only living that life, fighting to change what history has just kind of made it to be so, right? Because it's like 70 plus years without free election. After a while, people just forget that there was ever a free election and that things should be a certain way. And there's other people fighting that fight to make sure that this doesn't stay that way.
Right. So like you said, there are people who are fighting to make sure that it doesn't stay that way. And that's one of the kind of, it's not a paradox, but one of the contradictions, right? That we've been shaped by this reality that none of us want to see continue. Right. So Cuba Decide is a wide initiative that includes Cubans on the island and around the world, along with international friends who together work tirelessly to achieve a peaceful change. They fight for a democratic Cuba and are closer than ever to achieving that goal. So what's the strategy? It's the peaceful mobilization of Cubans and the international community, putting pressure so that the people can live in a democratic system and be free. You can follow Cuba Decide. That's Cuba Decide. It means Cuba decides in Spanish. Cuba Decide in all social media platforms at Cuba Decide. That's Cuba, D-E-C-I-D-E, Cuba Decide, Cuba Decide. To learn more or join Cuba Decide and donate at cubadecide.org/donations. The funds raised go to train promoters, recharge cell phones, meaning to keep cell phones active and connected to the internet, produce promotional materials on the island, generate international support, and much more. So go to cubadecide.org/donations. If you put Pan Con Podcast in the memo field in the donations, that will signal to them that money should go to keeping phones in Cuba connected to the internet.
Brought to you by Pig Ink Apparel. Pig Ink Apparel was started in 2012. 2012.
Okay.
That's an actual statement. It was started in 2012. I was sitting at a bar having a drink, and then I drew this like logo very poorly on a napkin, and I drew a name on a napkin. And the entire purpose of starting this apparel line was because when my family came here from Cuba, what sustained them financially was making clothes. Okay. So my grandmother, she's a G and like a super hustler, and she got on consignment like 1,000 yards of jean, and she made a deal with a friend. Her and my grandfather made a deal with a friend to like pay off this sewing machine, and then they put it in their house. And my aunt, uncle, and mother with my grandparents started sewing jeans. And then they started selling said jeans. And then from that company, my grandmother started a company with my father called H&D Fashions. And we did textiles forever. 25 plus years until sadly the company closed. We had 2 factories in the Dominican Republic and 1 here in Miami. And that's really what sustained my like childhood. I grew up in clothing factories my entire life. You know, like it's a very interesting place to be in. It's like these weird, like gigantic shelves of just huge rolls of fabric, and then these gigantic tables of ladies cutting shirts, and then going from one place to the next, and then going all the way down this like conveyor belt to like the ones that would sew it, and then they would sew it, and then they would print it, and they would do the whole thing. And it's just like what I grew up with. So it was a small thing that in 2012, which I had no business doing because I had like zero money to actually make it like an actual thing. I was like, I just want to come up with some like cool designs that are lifestyle, food oriented, chef oriented, that aren't so chachi. And you see a lot of the chachi food stuff, like your radishes are wild. Like we don't do stuff like that. So, we're making like a hard comeback. Our my partners and I have decided to reinvigorate the brand and bring it back. Our logo lives on within our hospitality company and obviously through the merchandise line. And we just dropped our website within the last 3 weeks, and we have some great designs that some local guys helped me do. They're all, I think, super dope. And, it ranges everything from like work shirts. When I say work shirts, it's actually the shirts that my staff wears to work, to, cooler designs and nicer fabrics and nicer shirts that you can wear out and kind of like hang out in for the day. But, Pig Ink has always been like a passion project for me. It's always been something that's never been for money or whatever. It's more of just like the story, and I think it's cool, and I think it's fun. And there's a way to help people within the process too. And I think that, what we're doing with DADE and what we've done with other people in the past, and probably what we'll continue to do in the future with donating to charities, and overall, I think it's a cool thing.
Good shit. So whenpigsflymia.com, that's where you get all of that stuff. Do you have like a personal favorite item? If you could only have one.
I honestly...
You could only have one for yourself.
I mean, I think it's because I'm super biased, because I love the original Ariete shirt. So the new shirt that we're dropping for, DADE is probably my favorite one that I wear the most. So I think that's super dope. The Reservoir Pigs one is like very cool too. I'm a big fan of the hats, like the beanie I'm wearing right now. I like very simple designs. So I don't like it's never going to be a lot of things happening. It's usually pretty simple, but yeah, I would say those are my favorite things. The dad hats are my favorite. Like the khaki dad hat is is super dope.
Yeah. The jersey has been in a rap video.
Yeah, I mean the jersey is very cool. The Ariete jersey, the Chugs varsity jacket is also very dope. There's really not many of those, but they will be going to reprint soon. So, I mean, it's really like, I feel terrible saying this, but it's like pretty much everything I wear every day. So I like them all.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. whenpigsflymia.com. That's it.
Go buy some shit.
Go give Mike all your money.
Yeah, all of it.
Very good.
Yep. Like that, I've literally told him, like, yo, if you say that shit again, we can go the fuck outside. Straight up. Same person. I told him that happened twice. Yeah. Like, we can go the fuck outside if you got a fucking problem. Because it's different. If you call it, thank you. If you call it my work ethic, it's one thing.
Yeah.
If you call out my, the work I'm doing, that's another.
Yeah.
Like, I just want to be better.
Yeah.
Right? But don't attack, like, my girlfriend left me because of whatever the fuck.
Yeah.
Right? And that's some of these old school guys, like, that's what they do.
Yes.
And it's very sad and it's fucked up. Like, if anything, I think from the opposite standpoint, like, as a boss now, like, people's personal lives I hold very dear, and, like, I want to help them and I want to be there for them. And, like, if they're going through a tough time, if they're going through a thing, I want to be there. But on a professional level, I'm going to hold you accountable. I'm going to fucking call you out. I'm going to be very tough. But personally, I'm your homie.
Yeah.
Like, I've always got your back. I'm always going to be here for you. And I think, like, maybe there's that tightrope line that people can live within. But honestly, today, I feel like a lot of people can't even live within that line either.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard. I mean, I totally understand the hustle and grind mindset, and I think it's necessary, and especially if you're in an extremely challenging industry like restaurants or like Hollywood.
Yeah.
But it wasn't until years later that I learned that there are some places you can work in Hollywood where you won't get yelled at. That, we don't have to be mean people just to make a movie, and I was like, oh shit, really? You can actually live that way. But I will say, I think I do have an embedded anxiety from my years working there. And I think the last year, especially after the articles came out in the Hollywood Reporter about Scott, I've had to grapple with how much I carried with me of the anxiety of working there. But that being said, I chose to be there, and I knew exactly what I was getting into. It's like agreeing to go for a running of the bulls.
Would you take it back for anything in the world?
I can't. No, and I can't say I did. But I will say that some people weren't. It attracts a certain type of person that has the right attitude to live in that. Right. For a person like him, I understood him. And I respected him, and I was able to roll with him. But there are other people that aren't like that. I knew a big thing about what spawned the article is the fact that one of the guys I worked with while there committed suicide last year, right? And his twin brother has come out and said a part of one of the biggest reasons why this young man killed himself was because of his anxiety and his time at Scott Rudin. Was a big detriment to that. And it shook me to the core because I was friends with this guy, right? And I see that...
Try to be quiet.
I understand now that that maybe it's not necessary to have such a high-stress work environment when the work itself is high-stress enough. But, it's a complicated issue because I never saw myself as a victim.
I don't know. I've never seen myself as a victim either. I've seen myself as a product of super hard work.
Yeah, but I also think that
But also like the other side, right? Like the mental mindfuck, the manipulation. Like I never stood for it. I would tell people to go fuck themselves. Like I mean, I don't care. Like call out my work.
Yeah.
Me as a person, I know who I am.
Yeah.
And like my personal life, don't ever use that against me.
Yeah.
And I think that's, you got to draw a line in the sand. And I think that, like, nowadays, I find people have a harder time drawing that line in the sand. Mm-hmm. And it's fucked, right? It's like, I don't know, as like a boss, I find like it's like a weird kind of like juxtaposition of like who you should be. Because you came up to be who you are through a certain thing. Yeah. And not saying that you yourself would mimic that, but you learn that way. Yeah. So then you show that way. It's like, Dave McMillan always says, he's like, be a shepherd and not a Viking. Right? And I say that shit all the time. It's like, but I struggle sometimes. Like the Viking in me comes out like super hard. Because all we care about is excellence. All we care about is like the truth of like what we're doing, the standard that we uphold, there's a lot of like passion. It's the same thing. Any creative is very similar, right? Any craftsman, any artist, that they're very like serious about what they do. So then when you have to give what you do to other people to execute several times in a day, it's like, I can only imagine as someone that writes, you say it a certain way in your head. Yeah. And then you see someone else say it differently. Mm-hmm. And you're kind of like, wait, but that's not how I imagined it being said. You know what I mean? I don't know. Is that how it would kind of come off?
Well, I mean, in like I said, filmmaking is a collaborative process. What I wrote doesn't mean anything if the actor can't say it. And more than that, if the actor can't perform it. Right? And so, like, everything that I write has to one day be performed by an actor. And that actor's job is to make it truthful, right?
Do you ever write something with an actor in mind?
Yeah, I mean, like when you work on staff of a
Picard,
TV show.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly, right?
Yeah.
So, like, you're sitting there at home
That's
writing.
an easy job, right? I mean, Patrick Stewart, you're talking about a legend.
Yes, like, well, it's kind of like, you know how the music should sound in your head, right? And so you do your job to do it. Like you have to copy it. A lot of working on a TV show is being a mimic, like the characters are established, the actors, and so you know how the characters speak, and so you do your part. But there's something interesting of the experience of writing the episode and then being on set and having to watch the actors bring it to life. And the best actors will be the first ones to say, like, I can't perform this because this isn't, I can't tell this guy to come. I can't say the line this way because the way we've staged it, the guy's in another room. So I need to change the line. It's like, oh, yeah, that's true, actually.
Can I tell you a funny story?
Sure.
Just because, like, I'm not an actor. I'm not a TV person at all, right? But I told you I did that show with Ludacris this year, right?
Yes.
So obviously it was for a very cookie cutter, like programmed situation, right? And it was for Food Network and Discovery Plus. And Ludacris was great. Like, all the people were great. But then sometimes they were like, we really would like for you to say this. And I'm like, I just can't fucking say that. I can't fucking do that.
Yeah.
And they were like, what do you mean? I'm like, yeah, I would never say, I would laugh if you had me say this thing. And they were like, really? I'm like, oh yeah, I will fucking laugh if you ask me to say this. And they were like, well, how would you say it? I was like, I'd probably say it more like this. And they were like, cool, then just say it like that. I'm like, all right, cool, then I'm just going to say it like that.
That's great.
And it was like, it was such a weird experience for me because I had never been in that scenario before. And like, Nick and I hang out, right? This is our second time hanging out since you've been in Miami. So like I told you the other night, I did the show on Hulu, and that was like very organic. And it was like, like just say whatever you feel. And that show was like great. It was much more personal and like organic. It's the perfect word. This one was programmed. It's for a certain type of person, a certain type of individual. The only reason I did it is because I thought it showed a different side of who we are, and so the idea of someone telling me what I should say was crazy to me.
Suddenly you're acting, you're not just...
And I was like, and I remember I tried to say some of these things that they had me say, and I literally laughed. And I was like, they're like, why are you laughing? I'm like, because this shit sounds stupid. Like, it sounds so fucking dumb, And they were like, well, we need to say something like that. I'm like, I don't know. I'll say it different, though. This doesn't make any fucking sense to me. So that was a very interesting experience for me, and I could only imagine, like, on a much more, I think, like, focused level of, like, this is a show and this is actual acting, how that would feel.
Well, I'm about to make your night because I'm going to compare you to Patrick Stewart. Like, Patrick Stewart would do the same thing.
My God.
Right? Like,
wow, I am fucking honored. Nick, we got to do this, man. We can do it. I'll fly wherever. Whatever it takes.
I mean, so for that moment, you were an actor, because an actor, if they'll look at it and be like, if they say, like, I would never say this, then you as the writer on set and be like, okay, well, let's figure it out. Like, how is it bullshit? And what's great is that the best actors are the smell test, because if they know an audience will call bullshit, then they're going to call bullshit first, right? The actor's role is to make something truthful, So if he says, like, I'll never say this, okay, well, maybe I should say this. And, okay, that makes more sense than me. I can play that, I can make that work,
Right.
So a lot of being a writer on set is having to have those conversations with actors, 2 minutes before we're going to roll, when they want to change the line, and suddenly we have to make it work, right? That's the part of the job that I really love. I love being on set, and producing the episodes.
Let's talk about this.
Yeah.
Major Crimes?
Yeah.
6 years?
6 seasons, yeah.
Is that years?
Yeah, it's practically years, yeah.
Okay. And then from there, what was the next step?
So I was a assistant for Scott Rudin for 4 years. And then I want somebody singing "Sweet Caroline" at a bar.
This is the first time we've actually done a podcast on Saturday and during a wedding.
Yeah.
And during a wedding.
Yeah.
This is you could write a story about this.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Recording a
intense.
podcast next to a wedding after party. So I was an assistant for Rudin, and then I wanted to become a writer, and I knew that working in TV was a way to work your way up. So I got a job as an assistant to the showrunners of The Closer with Keira Sedgwick in their last season, knowing that it would become the spin-off, which is Major Crimes, starring Mary McDonnell. And I worked as an assistant to the showrunner for a couple years. I had written a movie script during that time, waking up at 6 a.m., writing until 8 before I had to go in the office. And I showed that script to my boss. He saw I could write, and then he put me in the writer's room as a writer's assistant. And then I eventually became a staff writer, and I wrote 4 episodes for the show over 6 seasons. So when that show was ending, I'd gotten a TV agent, I'd gotten a manager, and when the show ended, I finally went out to the town for the first time.
My dog has a TV agent, has a manager. This is crazy.
Yeah, I got a lawyer, and I have a movie agent now because I sold a movie back in 2018.
Mind fucking blown. It's a long way since mushroom cuts in kindergarten, man.
Yes, it is. But, so in like 2017, 2018, with these like new reps, they take me out to the town, basically, is what we said. You go out to the town.
Yeah.
And you do what's known as the water bottle tour, because you have all these general meetings with different companies, and you go and you get the free bottle of water, and you meet with them, and they say, "What kind of movies do you like to write? We really enjoyed your script."
I love that name, Water Bottle Tour.
Yeah, the water bottle
I'm
tour.
going to use that again.
These days, after the pandemic, it's all on Zoom, so you don't get the free water anymore.
Fuck off, right?
But I will say, the water at Amblin Entertainment, Steven Spielberg's company, excellent water. Just the best damn water.
Got it.
And boy does
Book it, Nick.
Boy does he have the nicest
Ship
offices.
it.
I know.
Ship it.
Mr. Spielberg, if you can hear this.
Yeah.
I'm here.
Man, Steven Spielberg, you're out there, man. You're great. I love you.
He's a Pancom Podcast fan.
Yeah, he's
Mr.
one of the
Spielberg.
22.
Loved West Side Story.
Yeah.
Big fan. Can't wait for your next movie.
All right. So, how did you land on Picard?
So my old boss from Major Crimes, James Duff, was an executive producer on Star Trek Picard, and he brought me on with a couple other writers for the first season.
Is he staying on for 3?
No, he was only there for the beginning of season 1.
Okay.
But he was one of a, all-star team of executive producers. So my bosses on season 1 of Star Trek Picard were Alex Kurtzman, who was a writing hero of mine. I read all his scripts with his writing partner, Bob Orsi. They wrote the Transformers movies. They wrote the show Fringe. They were writers on Alias.
I love Fringe.
They were the highest paid writers for a while.
Fringe is an amazing show.
I fucking love Fringe.
Fringe is such a good show. Fuck, man.
Right?
People just don't give Fringe enough credit, and the fact that you just brought it up, and it's just I spent a lot of time on Fringe. That is such a good fucking show.
Such a good show. So here's a Hollywood dream come true. In 2008, when I was working for Rudin, there was no other show that I wanted to work on than Fringe, right? So I actually interviewed to be an assistant to one of the head writers on Fringe, and I didn't get the job. But then flash forward to 6 years later, I am now a writer in the writer's room, and my bosses are Alex Kurtzman and Akiva Goldsman, Academy Award-winning Akiva Goldsman, and they were the producers of Fringe. And so I couldn't work for them as an assistant, but now I got to be their colleague in a writer's room writing an episode of Star Trek. So
Beast.
It's life happens that way, man.
Beast.
And then the other member of the All-Star team was Michael Chabon, Pulitzer Prize-winning Michael Chabon. He's a novelist. He was one of the executive producers on Picard season 1 as well, and he soon became the main creative force behind it as we went further into the season. And so I found myself this, kid sitting at this table with these fucking Hollywood heavyweights, and now I have to, keep up. It's kind of like being your rookie season in the Lakers or something, and suddenly you have to play on the court with, Kobe and Shaq and all these great people, and you're just some fucking rookie, but you got to carry the ball as well as anyone else. That is the most sports metaphor that I can get, right?
I love that. That was very good. That was very good. I think you nailed it.
There you
I
go.
think you nailed it.
Yeah.
You're super nervous. Take a shot. Go ahead.
Yeah,
Drink it. Yeah. Take it. Relax.
I'm not here for sports metaphor. I'm more of the mining the field of your soul kind of guy.
So, you were with Picard for 2 years.
Yeah, for 2 seasons, which was more like 3 years. And the second season, we started writing the second season in November of 2019. And then the funniest thing happened in 2020, right?
Yeah.
The global pandemic.
And we're all back.
Yeah. And so the second...
And then you started listening to Panko Podcast.
And then I started listening to Bunko Podcast.
Everything changed.
And everything changed. Now, so we started breaking season 2 in the end of 2019, and then the pandemic happened, so we couldn't start rolling cameras, right? We couldn't start shooting. And what happens is, as a writer, you're only hired for a certain amount of time, like 20 weeks. And after those 20 weeks are up, if you still need to do work, then they can extend you, but only so much. So by October of 2020, we were still writing season 2, and the pandemic wasn't over, and we kind of ran out of my time, and I had to go move on to this other pilot that I'm writing for AMC, and so I had to leave them.
Watch me nail this.
And they...
I can nail it. I can do it.
And they continued to write, the executive producers continued to write and shoot season 2 eventually in 2021. So now this year, 2022, February 2022, season 2 of Picard comes out, and I wrote a draft of a episode, in 2020, but I actually really don't know what the season's going to look like when it airs, but I'm excited to watch. And I know that some of the story things that we came up with are still there, but the story changed after I left. So I'll be watching just as a fan. But I'm sure it's going to be cool. Q is there. Q is in the story.
Oh, Q.
I know, man.
Wow, deep Trekkies know
John
about Q.
Delancey.
Deep Trekkies know about Q.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's true.
Yeah.
I mean, I know about Cal. I'm deep Trekkie adjacent.
Are you?
Yeah, my mom.
Oh, that's right.
I know all the things.
Maggie's Kitchen.
Yeah.
Maggie's Trekkie Kitchen.
But before Maggie's Kitchen was Maggie's Kitchen, it was Maggie's Trekkie Kitchen.
All right, love that. So,
Cafe Margarita to prime time, next generation.
so the next, what is next for
What is
Nicholas
next?
Zayas
All right.
in the world,
So right now,
in the wild,
Yes.
with the water bottle tour that you no longer get the water bottle?
You don't get the water. Now it's just the Zoom tour of despair. The Zoom tour of despair. Right
Do you ever
now,
get like super fucked because you're like, I'm just another Zoom call that they have after another Zoom call.
Oh,
after
dude,
another
it's the
Zoom
worst,
call,
man. Like-
after another Zoom call. Like, you can't feed me a piece of duck through Zoom.
that is such a profound thing to say because you're entirely right.
I'm just like, I can't feed you duck through Zoom.
Yes. And the thing is, I am an extroverted person. I need people. I need the energy of people. I need to be surrounded by people.
I saw you at Seven Seas. You were quite a delight. You were feeling the room
Oh, dude.
of Seven Seas. Me and Nick drank till very late at night at Seven Seas, which is Miami's favorite local bar.
Can I tell you, heaven is a local dive bar.
Are you saying that heaven
Is
may
the
look like
Seas?
Seven Seas?
Yes. We can only hope. We can
Yeah,
only
you're right.
hope.
We can
Sorry,
only
that was too
you
close
have
to
touch
camera.
tones,
Yeah.
and you can control the music
Touch tunes.
from the other humans in the room.
One can argue that karma in this world is merely touch tunes credits in the afterlife. If you live...
Actually, while Nick and I were drinking at Seven Seas, we hatched an entire new plot that Nick will write. He will write.
Oh, yeah.
He will write, and I'm super happy I was part of it.
So the next thing I want to work on... Right now I'm writing a movie, but after that, the next thing I want to work on is a private detective show set in Miami.
Nick is very into private detective shows.
Oh, I love it.
We talked about this a lot. And,
Yeah.
me too. That's why I love that. So, we, I don't know, it was probably like 3 hours. Was it 3 hours? 3 or 4 hours?
Oh, it was more. We were there we were there until maybe 3 a.m.
3 in the morning?
Yeah.
Yeah, 3 a.m. It's okay. You could say we were there till 3 in the morning.
Yeah.
Panko Podcast it's an open, we're totally cool here.
Yes.
Yeah, it's fine. So,
It's a safe space.
yeah, it's safe space.
I'm from California. We love safe spaces.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if California loves our safe space, but I mean, we 4 hours. We talked about this show for like half of that, maybe more.
Oh yeah, dude.
Yeah, it was great. It was great. This is a Miami show.
So
we're not going to tell anyone about the show.
No, I know.
We're not going to tell anyone about the show.
That's the problem, is that I can hardly divulge the things I'm working on because
I
these
love
are
it.
things that I hope to sell in the next year.
Yeah, I love that.
But
Sell that
I think I could
motherfucker,
say
man.
that because I feel like I'm the only person I know that can adequately write it, which is, I intend to do a private detective show set in Miami in the vein of like the great Raymond Chandler, Philip Marlowe, detectives,
In the words of a good friend of mine, there should not be a private detective from Miami that's a ginger.
Yes.
That's a
correct.
ginger. Solving all the crimes of Miami.
Yes, the fact that all we have representing Miami in the space is NCIS CSI Miami.
CSI Miami. NCIS is a great show.
Is a different.
Ever,
that's a whole. I would not, dare.
Do not.
I would not dare
discredit all like 15 seasons of NCIS.
All right, but CSI Miami. The fact that the lead character on your show is red-headed, pasty-skinned David Caruso,
which is great, but just
great.
doesn't fit
Look,
there.
Caruso's great. Everyone loves the one-liners, right? But
with a scowl.
if David Caruso,
no, it's the one-liner with a scowl.
With a scowl, and he rips the glasses off, right? Everyone knows, the great. I love a good pun too, know. But if David Caruso walks into Versailles, right? And it's like, I need to question your waitress. The lady says, "Gege?" Like, what? Like,
I can imagine David Caruso walking in Versailles and everyone just stops. It's like, who is this man?
Who is this gringo?
They don't stop making the coffee, but they're like, who is this man?
¿Quién es this? Americano,
It's...
Y se acabó el pan.
The one line, he puts the glasses back on, he gets back in his Impala or whatever the fuck.
Yeah. Cue the Who.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like we have every Miami show has had some fucking white guy as the lead. And if you are going to adequately tell a story about Miami, right, your lead character is going to be a Latino. And Spanglish is going to be the language of the show, because that is the true lived experience of Miami, man.
No, I mean, listen, the reality of it is that no one ever shows Miami in the true light of who we really are, right? It's either the glitz and glamour of that fucking trashy Ocean Drive.
Yes.
Right? Which isn't, there is no glitz, there is no glamour there. It's just a lot of neon. Or that.
Yeah.
Right? Which is not representative of like who it is. And I'll give him credit where credit's due. It's like, Billy Corben has really said real stories about Miami.
Yeah.
And I think that it showed, like, this is a fucking tough town, man.
Yes.
It's super tough. There's so many different facets of this town. There's so many different types of people. There's so many different cultures here. It's like, it's crazy, right?
Yeah.
And no one ever shows that.
No.
You only have, like, in Bad Boys that there's like a Haitian gang.
Well, or like now we have Moonlight, right? Which is...
I actually have not seen Moonlight. I know that's terrible of me.
Wonderful.
I'm sorry.
Barry Jenkins is wonderful, right? But Moonlight is like the only movie you'll ever find... I mean, a movie basically about Liberty City won an Oscar. Like, that is significant, right? So that is up there in the pantheon of great, truthful Miami...
I should watch this, right?
Yes. Great.
Can we add this to the
Miami
show? No,
movies.
Right? Lamageddon is the only one.
Yeah, Lamageddon and Moonlight. Now, that's a double feature.
Lamageddon and then Moonlight.
The point of the backyard thing is that it's shitty movies.
Right, shitty movies in the backyard.
I don't want to throw Moonlight in there.
Yeah, I mean, but listen, if we're lighting a fucking whole old Christmas tree on fire, like with the bonfire, we should show actually maybe one good movie. And we're going to use the barrel to cook for people.
This will be the oddest
and
viewing party of Moonlight ever.
Oh, perfect.
Beautiful.
I do want to ask a related question that I have to borrow your microphone for. We don't have to go through all that, but sure.
Nick's on the mic now.
I'm on the mic now.
Mr. Jiménez.
No, I have a question for Nick from Mr. Jiménez.
Sure.
In light of the fact that you do what you do, I imagine that you've been exposed to more examples of it. So even if nobody does it perfectly, who's done it best, even if it's something that maybe people haven't seen, or it's like an episode of a thing that you saw that was set in Miami. Because I imagine like anytime somebody from Miami leaves Miami,
Sure.
everybody around them is like, hey, look at this Miami thing. Look at this. So
Yeah.
I'm willing to bet that you've been exposed to more writing and TV and film that references Miami than most people.
You know who I thought did a great job of depicting the city of Miami was the movie Chef. Like,
I'm actually so I hate food television.
sure.
And now I'm part of it, which sucks. I hate that. I feel like such a fucking loser for being a part of it. But Padma was a delight, and Ludacris, I know you're listening. I think you were a delight also. Chef and the movie with the fucking guy, Burnt.
Mm-hmm.
Very different stories, but
Yeah.
so very real, both of them.
Yeah.
They were so very real, like they were like so well done, and I felt so many of like both of those things. I watch those movies all the time.
So here's a great Hollywood story. So you know how they say don't meet your heroes, right? So like I said earlier, Swingers is the movie that like formed the core of my like identity, right?
As we see.
Exactly. So Swingers was
witness.
written by Jon Favreau, who was in the movie. Jon Favreau also wrote and directed and starred in Chef. So it's like 2014. I'm living.
Crushed it in that
He
movie,
fucking
man.
crushed it. It's
He
great.
crushed it.
And now Jon Favreau is one of the most successful directors ever. He did
Good for
Iron
him,
Man,
man.
and created the Marvel, set the stage for the Marvel universe, right? So it's 2014, and I'm a fan of Chef. And I know that he's doing as a promotional thing for the movie, they're doing a pop-up at Animal on Fairfax.
John and Vinny's place.
Yeah, exactly.
Miami guys.
Yep. Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, they worked for Michelle Bernstein here.
Oh, wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love their food. But so they were doing a pop-up with Favreau where they were making Cuban sandwiches outside of Animal. So I'm like, I'm gonna fucking go to this. It was like 10 minutes away from my house, so I show up. I'm in line to get a Cuban sandwich, and there's Jon Favreau. There is the guy who wrote my favorite movie.
Chef Manny,
right?
don't trip on the actual thing that doesn't move. It doesn't move. That's Chef Manny, everyone. Yeah, I know. I don't know where I'd be without that guy.
So I'm at the pop-up for Chef, and there's Favreau standing behind me, and I'm like, this is the guy. This is the guy that wrote the movie that shaped, it was one of the first scripts I ever read was the script for Swingers, right? So I'm like, I got to say something. So I go up to Jon Favreau, and I say, Mr. Favreau, I just want to say that Swingers was a big deal for me. And as soon as I start saying it, I start regretting it.
Oh, I remember you told me the story.
Because his eyes start to glaze over.
Yeah, like, I get it, bro.
And he's
I
like,
get
you
it.
are the
I get
100th.
it.
Like you're the 1,000th fucking young guy
today
to tell me, oh, Swingers, it's such
Look
a
at how I'm
movie.
dressed, bro.
Oh,
Look at how I'm dressed, bro. I got it.
it's so money. Oh, I love your movie. And he's heard it for the last 20 years. And I'm like, oh no, what am I doing? I should stop talking. And then he was like, okay, yeah, cool, thanks so much. And then I was like, oh, but actually, Mr. Favreau, like, I'm from Miami, and I thought Chef was awesome, and I thought how you showed Miami was legit. The fact that you went to Versailles, right?
And Oiko Mayed, they filmed the whole part
Exactly.
of the movie at Oiko Mayed.
I was like, the Miami part was fucking legit. And as soon as I said that, as soon as I was talking about his current piece of art, he was like, oh, yeah, really? Oh, that's so great. Like, and he's like, we had so much fun in Miami. And suddenly he was engaged. And so if you ever meet your hero, don't
bring
be a
him back,
fucking
Nick.
fanboy.
Get him on the show.
Yeah. Let's get fucking Johnny Favreau on the show. And also, Mr. Favreau, if you're listening, I'd love to meet you again.
Actually talk like friends.
Yeah.
Just one time.
I got some scripts for you to read.
He actually like in that Kennard, best surprise of 2021. Love you, man.
He's the best surprise?
Yeah, he is.
Oh, man, that's great.
Yeah. It happens sometimes. All right, Kennard. I'll do my best. Nick's not too bad. Mr. Jiménez, though, so. Yeah. No, I mean, like in that movie, I feel a lot of emotions when I watch that movie.
Yeah.
Even still.
It's
There's
so good.
There's like 3 food movies I feel emotions. Ratatouille, still.
Yes.
Oh man, so heavy. Chef and Burnt. All 3 of them. The Big Night, also like, very like cult following, The Big Night. But like, I don't know. And Thomas Keller was involved with, I'm pretty sure, all 3 of those.
Really?
Yeah, he was involved with the food part of all 3 of those.
Fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, Keller is a legend.
Yeah.
Legend. It's interesting, like, when you meet, like, your heroes or whatever, I'm pretty sure I've said this story before, but I'll say it again. I happened to meet one of my heroes through my own, like, arrogance and, like, very, like, disdain for talking to humans.
Yeah.
When I was cooking at an event, and I was making one of my dishes or whatever, like, someone kept tapping me on the shoulder, like, and I was just like, I don't like talking to people. And it was Dario Cincini's wife, which is his translator, and he's, like, the most legendary butcher of all time. And she was just like, Dario would like you to know that this is one of the best foie gras dishes he's ever had. And I turned around and I was like, fuck me. Okay, cool.
Wow.
This is crazy. I'm going to go fuck myself now. Like, this is a lot for me to digest while I'm feeding 500 people at the same time. Like, okay.
Dude.
That was cool because he tried my food and he really enjoyed it.
Fuck.
And
Well, dude,
that guy is a fucking legend, man. Legend.
Well, I'll say that, like, both you and I have been grinding for a while, right? Like, we've been grinding away for a while.
Since Mushroom Cuts.
Since Mushroom Cuts.
Yeah.
And it feels great when the universe gives you the fucking pat on the back once or twice, man.
It's interesting, though, because you have to acknowledge the pat on the back.
Yeah, you have to take the compliment.
The
dude.
grind is very
You've
tough.
earned
It
it.
makes it very tough.
Yeah.
The grind makes it very tough to accept a compliment.
I mean, part of what makes overachieving, ambitious people work is this feeling that, like, we should never be satisfied because we're always trying to work towards some sort of perfection. But man, for your mental health, you got to take the compliment when it comes. You got to say thank you when it comes, man.
What a trigger word. Mental
You got to
health.
remember.
What a trigger word. Mental health.
Yeah.
We won't dive into mental health because we'll be on here for another hour.
Man.
But, so we've talked about what's after Picard.
Yes.
We've talked about what's current.
Yes.
Let's talk about your, like, I'm fascinated that a good friend of mine has lived in LA for 15 years.
Yeah.
Right? 16 years?
15 years.
Yeah,
this
15
is 15 years. 2022. Yeah, bro.
Do you not? Do you miss Miami? Are there not times? Are there, like, I lived in Virginia for 4.5 years, and every day I pined for, like, the things that made me, like, connected.
Yeah.
To our, I don't know, who we are and, like, so many things. I could only imagine 15 years removed, coming back for a couple weeks, like, how that feels.
Yeah, man. So it's funny because, like, the leaving Miami, and at least even just leaving Miami and being in Florida State for about 3 years in Tallahassee gives you a perspective and an appreciation of
Sure.
the city. There's lots of people who grew up here and never leave, and they don't know what the rest of America is like. They think they live in America.
I don't think they appreciate here as much as they should.
Miami is one of the most unique Americans. It's like nowhere else in America. And you can be born here, live a whole life, and die and think you live in America and not realize there's a whole other country out there. There's a whole other country that doesn't speak Spanglish and doesn't know what a croqueta is and doesn't know how to play dominoes. Right?
Yeah,
Like,
you can't go to the corner and get a cotadito and a croqueta and a pastelito, like, outside of Broward.
anywhere north of Broward.
Yeah, like, you
Really?
can't, like, once you leave Broward, it's like,
It's
Very-
actually, yes.
it's different.
It is the Americano America. It
They're
is the
giving you
gringo
biscuits
America.
with apple butter.
Yeah. And
For you, they're giving you matcha and other things.
yeah.
Matcha and some kind
And
of, like,
oat milk
super
and-
healing thing.
Yeah, and overnight oats and those sorts of things. Like, imagine the genius that came up with overnight oats.
I know, it's so smart. I was going to set this bitch up, and I'm going to come back tomorrow. It's going to be done.
Yeah, and it's $14 in a mason jar.
Right.
It's like cold brew. It's day-old coffee.
Oh man, cold brew is delicious though.
It is.
Packs
a punch.
I'll double down on cold brew.
Sure.
Yeah, sure.
But what were we saying? Oh yeah. So look, there's a part of me that is, from the moment I was born, I wanted to leave Miami. Right? Like as a kid, there's something about being a writer that just always makes you feel like an outsider. So I'd watch all this TV as a kid growing up. And what I saw on TV looked nothing like where I was growing up. I wanted to live in this fantasy of America, which was, Full House, Family Matters,
Full House,
Step by Step.
Bob Saget, what a legend. What a legend Bob Saget is, right?
Brilliant comedian. Filthy comedian.
Filthy.
Yeah.
I know, which is my
So
favorite
wonderful.
thing about Bob Saget.
Yeah. Danny Tanner is a filthy human being.
I know.
Cut it out. Quit it. Well, that was Dave Coulier, but still.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's right.
Somewhere Dave Coulier's ears are burning. He's like, somebody's talking about me.
Finally.
Finally.
It's been a decade.
That's so funny.
More.
But there was a part of me growing up that was just like, I don't want to be here. I don't want to be in Miami. I want to be in whatever world exists on the movies and TV shows that I live in, right? And that was the escapist in me. And so I always wanted to leave. And it took me going to Florida State and living elsewhere to be like, oh, wait, I actually appreciate where I came from.
Yeah.
Even if I never felt comfortable in my skin in this city that I grew up in, right? Like I always never wanted a Miami accent. I don't know. Maybe it's a whitewashing of myself. I don't know. I struggle with these things, right?
Yeah.
But I always wanted to leave and move onward, right? And then I live in Los Angeles where I always wanted to live. And over the years, especially after a pandemic in which stuck in quarantine, every experience has become virtual, right? You can't eat duck over Zoom, right?
I know you can't.
So social interactions, work, entertainment is all through a screen. And so you end up going crazy and you start being like, what in life is real? And me, like I said, as an extrovert, I need people. I need to feel life happening. And so more than ever this past 2 years, I felt a need to do what I call is touch the soil, right? I'm like, I have to get back in touch with whatever is real. So I came back here in June, and I'm back here now, just trying to ground myself again and be like, this is Miami.
You can clear all the water glasses too, man.
Thank you, Keith.
No, I'm just clear them all.
I'm drinking. I'm staying hydrated.
Me and Nick, Mr. Jiménez, and myself are not.
Nick Jiménez, professional afterthought.
Yeah. Wow, Nick, Mr. Jiménez, the professional afterthought.
The professional afterthought. That's one of the worst insults I've ever heard in my... That's brilliant. Tell Casey she wins, man. That's brilliant.
Yeah. So
I've come back here to get back in touch with my roots, and I think now, later in life, I've come to appreciate this place and what's real, and now I want to talk about the place I came from. You know?
I think that when you reach a certain level, like you want to... Your roots, you want to make them... not special, but you want to share them with the world.
Yes.
And I think that's part of like my journey that I've like, when Area turns 6 January 14th of 2022.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I think that after like a year and a half or so, like I felt like I needed a purpose. The place needed a purpose, and that was the purpose. To give the roots like their due.
Yeah.
And I think it's paid off, and we've been super blessed, but you don't know until you leave.
Yes.
And you also don't know until you feel like you're up against a wall, right? Like I think food in Miami has been up against a wall for many, many years. There was like a wave of great chefs, the Mango Gang, and some before them, and some after them too. But it was like this wave up against like this ideology of what the rest of the world looked at us like, which is kind of what you were talking about, which is, like you look at the show about Miami and it's a ginger guy that's walking into Versailles and everyone's like, who is this man?
Yeah, if CSI Miami goes to Versailles, usually it's just, pink flamingos and neon signs.
Right.
And,
so there's no like cutthroat real like showing of who the city really is.
Yeah.
And we all grew up in it, and we all grew up in like very ideal situations, and there was a lot of people that didn't grow up in ideal situations, and there's a lot of parts of Miami that are super fucked up.
Yeah.
And there's lots of stories of Miami that are super fucked up. And they haven't really been shared. I think that in the last 5 years, they've been shared more than they have in the previous. But,
Sure.
I think that's what, where I found purpose was connecting the Cuban American culture to progress, which I don't think has happened. And I don't know. It's a vulnerable place, and it's a good place to be because vulnerability makes you work harder.
Yes, and as an artist, vulnerability is the key to making anything of artistic merit. At least me as a writer, I've come to a place where I've stopped being in the place where I want to imitate the things I've seen, and now I actually want to tell the stories of who I am, the stories that only I can tell.
Right.
And you as an artist, all you have is your instincts, your taste, and the story you want to tell.
It's so interesting, right? Because now, as my career has grown and where I'm at now, I look at my team at Area, it's a table of collaboration, and we all talk collectively about food and so on and so forth, which I love. And sometimes they talk about food and they come up with food, and I'm like, but what makes this who we are? You have to draw it back to what this place means. Eliminate you, me, yourself, all that. Eliminate that. Who makes it, what makes this us? And it's a very difficult thing. And then you come up with 10 things on a dish, and then, I tell them, draw 7 of them off. Is the dish the same? Is the foundation of the dish and the meaning of the dish the same? Mm. And it's it's crazy. It's not a lot of people understand what it takes to be that creative output to tell a story, and your whole job is telling a story. I think that we struggle a little bit more because people are just they're hungry and they just want to be satiated, right?
Yeah.
But in essence, we're telling a story.
Yes.
And I think always for things that matter, there's a story attached to them because there's depth to it. There's meaning to it. When you eat it, it tastes different because there's a reasoning behind this.
Yes.
If you eat our foie, it's delicious. But when you know the story, it's otherworldly, I think.
Dude, a chicken soup that you get from Campbell's, right? Campbell's chicken soup you get from Winn-Dixie is different from the chicken soup your grandmother made for you when you were sick one day when you were a kid. Right.
It's funny. Yesterday was New Year's Eve, right? And we had a consomme on the menu with tortellinis, and it was beautiful. And I was telling my chef here, I was like, this reminds me of chicken noodle soup, even though it was fish. But I was like, reminds me of chicken noodle soup that my grandmother made. He's like, yeah, we've always talked about that. We should revisit that. And I love that conversation. I love the openness of that conversation. I love being able to have that conversation because it's people that get it.
Yeah.
It's people that it's a very interesting time in our room right now because there's a bunch of monsters in there.
How so?
They're savages.
Yeah.
They're so good at their job.
Oh, good.
So talented. They're so young. They don't even know how good they are. And they will be better than me. And that's what I want.
That's good.
And it's it's so interesting, right? Because there's only one other time in my career that I've visibly and emotionally felt it, and it was back years ago when I worked for Norman that I knew that everyone in that room would be a chef of their own thing.
Oh, that's great, man.
And they all are. Now, they all do their own thing. They're all in charge of their own thing. They all do their own food, and they're all exceptional at what they do. And it's I know that everyone in this room right now will do the same thing. It's just different now because I'm there instead of being part of the room, So it's it's cool to see, and I feel in some kind of duality, the way a writer's room works.
Yeah,
there would be some kind of similarity to that.
Yeah, man. I mean, when a writer's room works well, when the people that are in that room are great, and when the person who's running the room, the showrunner, really knows what they're doing, it's the best job in the world. For me, it's my favorite thing in the world. To be in a room and all we do is pitch ideas for a story, it is so much fun. And I mean, the 6 seasons that I was on Major Crimes was just a great time. We laughed so much. We share more meals together than we did with our families. You know what I mean? It's the best job in the world when it works well. A lot of crappy writers' rooms are because, maybe the showrunner is a egomaniac or a monster, or like the vibe it's a toxic workplace. But when it works well, it's excellent. And I think that shows in the work, artists coming together to work together on a project is sometimes it's greater than the sum of its parts, and that's the goal.
Do you find writing to be an art or to be a craft?
Oh, brother, what a great question. That is a question asked by a fucking artist who knows what he's doing. That is a great question, because
I've been vindicated.
Because same thing with being a chef. Is cooking a steak an art or a craft?
It's a craft.
Both. It's a craft, but the artistry of what you add to it, how you present the dish is your art too, though, right?
It's the next level, yeah.
Yes.
It's like when you're working, when you are working to better yourself, like, and I guess we're in a way we're all working to better ourselves every day. When you're a hustler and you only care about like the grind,
Yeah.
We all just want to be better every day.
Yeah.
So the craft is always there. The art, though, like that's that part of you that is triggered at a certain time, at a certain moment, at a certain thing. And some artists are better than others.
Yes.
And I think that there is similarities. There is like a parallel between the two, but I think one will drop off and one will continue.
Yes. The craft is the tool of the art, or rather, the craft is the vehicle of the art, right? At the end of the day, I have to know how to physically write a screenplay. I have to know the craft of the screenplay. You have to know how to write a scene, not even just formatting, but how to construct a scene, how to construct a story, how to write something that actors can perform, etc. But in understanding the craft and in putting in your hours of becoming a craftsman, then can the art speak. Then can the art come through. And there's sometimes like writing episode 7 of season 4 or 5 of Major Crimes. That's craft, You sit
filler.
down.
Was it a filler?
Actually, season 5, episode 7. If you have HBO Max, you can watch it. It's called Moral Hazard. That was one of my first solo episodes. Great fucking episode. I'm proud of it. Really cool. Had a lot of fun doing that one.
Not a filler episode.
Not a filler episode.
Okay, got it.
People love that episode. I like that episode. But the craft. When you're writing an episode of TV, there's a lot of craft. There's a lot of I need to make a table that looks like all the other tables that
functionality, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But within building that table, the art is the soul of the thing. Like you have to be an artist. You have to bring with it in any story that we tell truth, right? Because like I said, if it's not truthful, the audience will smell it, right? They will smell that something's rotten. They will smell the bullshit, right?
Right.
And all we seek when we are watching a movie or a TV show is connection. We want to connect with these characters, right? And we want to feel this, this play, this show of life, right? And the artistry that comes with storytelling is in making that illusion happen, right? It's in making it feel unique, truthful, and like maybe you learned something or maybe you've felt something. Every piece of art, the whole point of art is to make you feel something, right? And I think that in any craft, you have to study the craft so that you can actually do the art, And
study is a huge part.
Boy, study and work. Everything is study and work.
Yeah, I mean, like study, like I encounter it a lot. Like like kids. I went to culinary school. I studied. Like, no, you didn't study. Do you know who these 5 people are?
Yeah.
No, then you have not studied. Like, have you read their work top to bottom? Do you understand their thought process, why they did it, the structure of their menu, and why they put it that way, and the small curveball that they'll put in the middle or at the end or at the beginning, or why they did that, and like how they, like the function of why they do what they do.
Yeah.
That study is far beyond the classroom.
Yes.
It's a very personal thing. Like, who you decide to study and how you decide to study and what you decide to study is up to you. So it's the craft and art thing for me is like, it's always a struggle, right? Because like what we do is a craft, right? And how we take it to the next level is an art. We want to tell a story, and if you tell a story, there's an art to that. If like you want to make people feel emotional through a meal, it's not fucking easy.
No, man.
It's not like I've watched a lot of like shitty TV. I've watched a lot of great TV. I've watched a lot of shitty movies. I've watched a lot of great movies, and there's a visceral difference between the both.
Yeah.
There's great storytelling and there's bad storytelling, and I have movies or shows that I go back to remind me of a thing. It's the same. It's the same. Like, you go to a certain place to eat food because you know that it's just going to be a certain thing that you need to feel satiated. And then you go to a certain place for a certain event that you want that type of food for that type of experience for that type of event. So I find them very similar, but obviously completely opposite.
Yeah.
Serious question. In the world of streaming.
In the world of streaming. Okay.
Streaming.
Yeah.
Do you find it insulting that they automatically skip to the next episode without giving credits?
Yes, I think it's a problem. I think that
the only reason I ask this question is because I am super deep in Peaky Blinders.
Yeah.
Again, for the second time. Right?
And they give you 2 seconds before the next one starts playing. Yeah.
It's 4. I believe it's 4 or 5 seconds.
Yeah.
Right? And it's like engulfed my life for the last like month, and I was like, I wanted to dive back into this show because I feel like this show has a lot for me, and I want to just take it all in again. And because we're friends, every time they do that, I'm like a little annoyed.
Honestly,
because I don't know who wrote the show.
Yeah. No, 100%. 100%. I agree with you. I think that some of these streamers, and it started with Netflix too, it can feel
It's all on Netflix. I watch a show on Netflix.
Yes. I can feel it sometimes feels like an assault, like a barrage of being force-fed the next episode. And I understand that, yes, it will help your algorithm and it will help you to get the person to binge watch the next episode. But I think that emotionally, after you experience an episode, after you experience something on television, or even a movie, I think it's even worse with movies, there is a come down, an emotional come down of when the credits roll, where you're trying to absorb the thing that you've just experienced.
You're giving like humans too much emotional credit right now.
I mean, I don't know. If I just finished watching E.T.
Oh wait,
right?
Mr. Jiménez has thoughts.
No, I just don't think he's giving. I don't think that you're. All right,
Nick's coming.
Nick's coming to the microphone.
I don't think that this is Mr. Jiménez. I don't think that Nick is giving people too much credit, although I'm making my own assumptions about what you meant. I don't think that he's saying that people see the credits and think, well, here's the window for emotional come down I've been looking for. I think it just sort of happens. Like you're sitting there. It's a very lean back experience as opposed to like a lean forward. You're very passive, which is why these platforms need that like, okay, we don't even want to give you the option of leaning forward. We're going to lean forward for you and play the next episode. Absent that auto play the next episode, if you just gave people a minute, they probably wouldn't. Like, they'd probably wait and have that come down whether they were conscious of it or not. Is how I understand the experience you're describing.
Yeah,
I don't think you need to give people emotional credit or whatever it is that you call it.
No, I'm just saying that, like, if you've just finished watching E.T., I just feel like if you've just finished watching the movie E.T., right? The movie E.T. has like the most emotional last 5 minutes of any movie. And the moment it cuts to the title card that says directed by Steven Spielberg, you have 2 seconds before they start playing like I don't know, an episode of fucking Great British Bake Off. Like, you know,
I have a question for Nick though.
It's an assault, man. It's a barrage.
If you were an editor for a magazine for how many years?
At Cigar Snap, I was there 7 years.
7 years. Would you have been upset if they did not put you, like, plain as day, as editor of that magazine on the magazine?
Oh. Yeah, no, I'm not arguing with what your question of whether it's upsetting.
Okay.
My comment has. What I'm saying is that when he said part of why it's upsetting is also because when the credits roll, it's an opportunity to process what you're doing. And you were saying, I think you're giving people too much credit. And I'm not saying, I think it would be giving people too much credit if like everybody was sitting there thinking, okay, well, here's the moment I've been waiting for to contemplate. I think that moment comes whether you want it to or not, because if you have taken in something good, part of what makes it good is that it's going to impact you whether you want it to or not. And if you just are given that moment of whatever soundtrack with a bunch of scrolling text, whatever, then right, and I think you take it. Yeah, I think you take the Miley Cyrus time. Whether you read Nick Zayas' name in the credits or not, you take in Miley Cyrus and you take a moment to process what Nick put in front of you.
I'm just like, because I'm just going back to the show that I'm currently
Yeah, how do
watching.
you feel when an episode of Peaky Blinders ends and before you know it, you're starting the next one?
Well,
like do you
you
feel
know,
like
like-
you're being rushed through a museum or
I'm
something?
also wondering if it's just because we're friends,
Yeah.
right? And I plowed through this episode, these shows. I plowed through them. I am on season 5, and this is not that old for me. Like it's only 6 episodes a season, but I have thoroughly enjoyed it. Super well written. The acting is phenomenal. The soundtrack is phenomenal. The story is phenomenal. Everything is phenomenal about it, right? I relate to the show super well. I love everything about the show. And fuck, I'm like thinking, just because obviously we have the relationship that we have, I'm like, who the fuck wrote this?
Yeah.
Who the fuck, like, and maybe, and I wonder if it's just me because of my relationship to you and my relationship to Mr. Jiménez over here too. Like, I want to know because they are incredibly talented.
Yeah, and there's the little button there that says like watch credits. The only thing is you have to race to grab your remote control within the 4 seconds and then hit that little button.
4 or 5. It's
You
4 or
know,
5 seconds,
yeah.
something like that.
But it goes by quick. You
Yeah.
know? I don't know. People have complained about it, and it's true. And it's, then you also wonder how much Netflix is pumping their numbers of viewership when, half the people are just like leaving it on while they fall asleep, But
Yeah, I mean that's a reality too of just making money,
yeah.
right? Which is a real thing, but it's also, and we've talked about this too, it also creates a different avenue for you to do things that may have not existed before, but it also creates a different type of viewership that did not exist previously, because you can get into a show and then it could disappear for 4 years and then come back.
Yeah, look, we're in a really interesting time now where it's and the pandemic totally accelerated it. And I don't really understand a lot of it. Like, I find streaming to be a bit of a black box, and everyone's really just trying to figure it out as they go. But yeah, the medium has changed where now we can have 6-episode seasons. I cut my teeth on a show that was 21 episodes a season.
Right.
And when you do 21 episodes a season, you can have a living wage for a year, right? When you do 6 episodes a season, you work for 4 months, and then you have to find out when's the next time you're going to get a job.
Right.
But even at just the experience as a viewer, you watch 6 episodes, then you wait for 2 years for the next 6 episodes.
What's
to
like?
come
What
out.
was that show that we were talking about? It was like a sci-fi show. Was it Sweet Tooth or whatever?
We were talking about Black Mirror.
No, not Black Mirror. It was the last time you were here. Not just the other night. It was
Yeah, I watched Sweet Tooth. Yeah,
Was
with
it
the kid
Sweet
with
Tooth?
the horns. Yeah.
yeah, the kid with the horns and
Yeah.
shit. I was like, that's a really cool fucking show. It was a great show, and they're like, oh, when's season 2 is coming? It's like, when?
Yeah.
So I feel like it's a very interesting dynamic that we're in, because we don't. It's just a different way to watch shows.
Yes.
Like NCIS is 24 episodes for 15 years.
Yeah.
That's a long fucking show.
It's a lot. I mean, there are people who, though a lot of people maybe don't make many of those shows anymore, people still love them. The most popular show on streaming is like The Office or Friends.
Yeah.
Right?
Cult following shows.
Not even cult following.
Those are cult following shows, though, dude.
Pretty big cult. Like The Office is like the most popular show in the world.
A Seinfeld.
Seinfeld. The streaming rights for Seinfeld was a huge deal because they know that Seinfeld is one of the biggest properties in television ever, right? And it's mostly because there's like, for most of these shows, there's hundreds of episodes. So there's just the hours of the content, and people just put it on and live with it.
And they live with it, yeah. It's like fodder in the background.
I grew up watching 3 episodes of The Simpsons after school for like 10 years because they were on reruns on Channel 29 and Channel 39.
Yeah.
Right?
I was more like a Saved by the Bell, Family Matters.
Yes. Home Improvement was a
Home
big one.
Improvement.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Good
That's
show.
Good shows.
Great show.
Good shows. God. They just don't do that anymore.
I think there's more interesting. The medium is moving in a way that's fascinating, and it's very dynamic. And so I try to sometimes be a little bit optimistic about it. I'm working on a show now with Steve Conrad, who is a wonderful writer. He's producing this pilot that I have at AMC. And Steve told me on the phone, he wrote and produced the show Patriot on Amazon, which, if anyone has never watched that show Patriot, it's one of the best shows on TV in the last 10 years.
I've never watched it.
It is excellent. Go home and watch it.
I'm into it.
Brilliant.
I need to finish Peaky Blinders first.
Yes, you do.
Okay.
For the 3rd time or however many times you've seen the show?
This is my second go-around.
But Patriot's a wonderful show. He, when giving me notes on my script and helping me come up with this show, he said something which was, he likes to view it as, how can we move the medium of television forward, and how could we do something that's never been done before? And for me, as an artist who's also just trying to make a living, to hear somebody else like try and be like, how can we move the medium forward? I'm like, oh, thank God. Like, here's an artist talking to me. Here's somebody who's trying to challenge me artistically, and I think that's really cool. And he went and created one of the weirdest, most fascinating and funniest shows on TV right now that I don't think many people have watched, but is a show called Ultra City Smiths that is on AMC Plus, that I encourage everyone to go out and, get the 7-day free trial of AMC Plus and watch this show. Ultra City Smiths.
That is probably going to lapse, and you're going to have to pay for the whole month.
They have 6 episodes. And they're all half an hour each, and you can watch them in 2 days. But it is the funniest, most unique show on television. It is a modern-day film noir about a fictional, like, New York, right, called Ultra City. And it's about a head of a family who's murdered and a detective that has to solve the murder. That being said, the whole show is animated, stop motion animation with baby dolls, right? Right?
Baby dolls.
With baby dolls.
This could be with Lamageddon.
Yes, it is fascinating. And there's a musical number in every episode.
I fucking love this. This is definitely Lamageddon worthy.
Yes.
We can do this.
It is like Team America meets Chinatown. That is the best way. That is the best way I can explain it. And it is at both times the funniest thing I've seen on television, and also incredibly moving and emotional and deep. And it's something only Steve Conrad can do. And I love this show, and I want everyone to watch it. And it's insane. So when you need to like experience something new as an artist that just like is weird and wonderful, it's refreshing, and that's my suggestion. That's my one cool thing.
My one cool down when I'm having like a really like shitty, like the world is shitty and I need like a cool down from the world. You know what I go back to?
What?
The Next Generation.
Hell yeah, dude.
Always.
Oh hell yeah, man.
I always, and it's just I could pick a random episode.
What's one of your favorite episodes of Next Gen?
I mean, I always go back to like the first 3 episodes of Next Generation as like my favorite 3 episodes.
The pilot's great.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Every episode has got its own story, and it's like very different, and it's like, I don't know. And I also go back a lot to Babylon 5, which a lot of people don't give enough credit to.
Yeah.
Babylon 5 was a great sci-fi show, and those are like my I need recess from the world.
Yeah.
So I think we've reached a point. All right. And now for the first wind down of 2022. And in 2022, we will continue this fucking thing called parting recommendations. I actually have a parting recommendation that I was shocked about just today. I went to a car show today. It was at a restaurant, and the restaurant was actually rather delicious. Called Holy Mackerel in Fort Lauderdale. I had fish fingers. I enjoyed them very much with tartar sauce. My friends had some pulled pork sliders. They were delicious also. It was they had the Holy Mac and Cheese, which was also delicious. I was shocked, and I was very happy.
Well, what's interesting is that Holy Mackerel is actually the sequel to Velocipaster. It's actually about a nun that gets bitten by a fish. It's kind of like a reverse Splash.
God, that's so good.
Holy Mackerel.
Wow. Yeah, that's my parting recommendation. The first parting recommendation of 2022.
It's great. Well, let's see. Other than the show Ultra City Smiths, which I think is phenomenal on AMC Plus, I'd recommend the movie Licorice Pizza that I think came out on Christmas Day in select cities. Written and directed by Paul Thomas Anderson, who's a wonderful filmmaker. He did Boogie Nights, Phantom Thread, There Will Be Blood. But, man, I saw Licorice Pizza at the Westwood Village Theater. It was the only screen that was showing it in December. I saw it in a packed theater full of college kids. And, man, it was one of the most fun movie-going experiences I've had in like 5 years. It was excellent. I love this movie.
That's heavy.
It's a great movie, and it's just pure joy. And I think it's great. So when it comes out, go out and see it. It's just a wonderful, fun, great movie, man. So
I love that. Mr. Jiménez? Come. I'm going to hand my microphone over to Mr. Jiménez.
Oh, man, you're enjoying the hell out of this mic stand situation.
I love it. So much power.
I'm going to recommend this is half shameless plug, half recommendation. Have you heard the episode that we did with Ricardo Paullosa?
no, I did not.
So I'm recommending this to anybody who hasn't heard it and is not yet tired of hearing me talk about this episode. But especially to you, Nick, I would suggest that you listen to this. So Ricardo is I know him through the Belen Alumni Association. He's in his 60s. I'm just saying, this is how we connected with this guy. And he is an art critic. He's, I think, my understanding, and I've never been this deep into the art world, but is like one of the most consequential critics of Latin American art of his lifetime, and certainly ours. And then is also a poet. So he was nominated for a Pulitzer, and most of his poetry is like inspired by art. So the reason I'm recommending this is because so much of that conversation is with this guy who's coming at it from a very different angle on what art is, the distinction or the differences in whatever, where art meets craft. And then also a lot of interesting things about what makes Latin American art distinct from art from the rest of the world, which I think is something that
was a great episode.
Yeah,
That's fascinating.
Which I think, being from Miami as a Latin American capital in a lot of ways, ends up being relatable, right? Like, we didn't grow up in Latin America, and yet we grew up in a Latin American culture that, like, it makes perfect sense. And I would be curious, like, after you listen to it, not like it's not going to change your life, but whether it gives you some sort of like a different perspective or like a new lens to understand how you're approaching your work differently from how other people might be approaching theirs.
Definitely. That sounds fascinating. And, you know, I'll check it out, man.
And then also, not a shameless plug recommendation, just because I was listening to him on my way here. Listen to Bobby Darin.
Fucking Mac the Knife? Hell yeah, dude.
Mac the Knife, but I was specifically blasting Clementine.
Clementine.
Have you heard Clementine?
No.
It's about a girl whose father is a miner from North Carolina. But they also, for some reason, have cows that it's her job every morning to walk the cows to the mine. Why cows have to go to the mine, I don't know, but she goes over a footbridge, and she's really fat. and the footbridge breaks, and the whole song is like this really fun song about how this fat girl named Clementine died drowning because she was too fat to go over the bridge.
Is that the traditional, like, oh my darling, oh my darling, oh my darling?
No,
Clementine?
no, it's not that. It's not
Okay.
that. This is much darker.
It's a different Clementine.
It's much. It's so dark and
yeah.
like, but the whole song is like this very fun. Like we're taking too much joy in Clementine's death. So check out Clementine, and also I saw Licorice Pizza. It was a lot of fun, and I wish that somewhere online there were clips of John Michael Higgins doing that Japanese accent.
Oh, it's
because
cringe,
that
cringe
was cringe. That was the best.
I mean, the cringe is the point. Like
That's the
yeah,
thing. That's
yeah.
what made it so great. And my understanding is that there's like calls to boycott this thing over this. See, it's like the whole joke is how dumb he is.
Well, yeah, the character is incredibly racist,
Right.
and so
Exactly.
the audience is watching a moment that is incredibly racist, right?
Right.
And so you can see people being pissed off about it.
I guess.
But the context and the point of it is that yes, this character is
I can see
incredibly
people being
racist.
pissed off about
You know,
it. I
that
think
was
it's
actually
silly
a real
that they're
guy.
pissed.
That is a.
Oh, yeah.
He's playing an actual guy who opened the first Japanese restaurant in the valley.
For sure.
Who was a fucking used. Appropriated Japanese culture.
Yeah.
I think that's what the scene is about. But I get the reaction. You know,
I get the reaction in the sense that I can comprehend the reaction's existence. I think
Yeah.
the reaction is silly. Because if that had been like, and I'm just putting myself right, like to the extent that any of this is like, I don't know about empathy. If that had been a Cuban character, I would have thought it was fucking hilarious. If he was just doing like a shitty Pacino Cuban accent.
yeah. I mean,
You know-
CC and anyone who's ever mentioned Scarface to me when
Exactly right.
when I say I'm Cuban.
Yeah. So
Every Scarface poster at Florida State University when I was
yeah,
there.
I will
get it.
say that was one of my frustrations with the movie was that I didn't expect for it to be as surreal and as weird as it was, and it left me feeling like I went, and this was more a matter of like expectations and then versus what it ended up being.
Yeah.
I had kind of gone in wanting for it to feel more like a faithful autobiographical thing. Like I was ready to learn something about this guy's weird upbringing.
Yeah.
And it left me feeling like, oh man, I have to like question whether any of this was legit or if it was
It
just like,
is it is a 70s movie, as in it is inspired by the movies of the 70s.
Right.
And if you watch something like The Long Goodbye, for example, or he dedicates the movie to Robert Downey Sr., and like Putney Swope is a big inspiration for him. These are all impressionistic movies,
Right.
right? It's a vibe. Like
It was very much a vibe.
right? The movies from the
As the kids
70s,
say.
yeah.
like things barely are like
It's shaggy.
You can barely keep track of where we are in the movie throughout the movie, and you can tell like 20 minutes in, like the point of this movie is the vibe.
yes.
There's barely a story happening.
Crack a beer or light a fat one and watch Licorice Pizza and just chill with the vibe, man. Because
sounds
that
like
was
a
the
great
70s.
time.
I love that movie. Yeah.
Well, Senor Mushroom Cut Nicholas Zayas, thank you so much for being on this podcast. Oh yeah, that's right.
Oh, the only shameless plug I think I have is Star Trek Picard season 2 on Paramount Plus.
Which episode though?
February 2022.
Which episode?
Honestly, the episode I wrote got rewritten so much that all I would say is that my contributions were probably to the general season story,
Okay,
as opposed to a particular episode.
I'll take it.
I have a
Still says
co-producer
your name
credit,
at the end of the
so-
fucking show, so don't
Actually,
don't
I have
downgrade my how proud I am.
Yeah, I have a co-producer credit, which is my first producer credit ever for the whole season. So you'll see my name on every episode.
Love
If
that.
the credits don't roll, if they don't skip you to the next episode.
Shameless plugs, all the things.
I'll do a shameless plug. Chug's Diner.
Oh,
Chug's Diner is my favorite restaurant in the city of Miami. It is the only great diner in the city of Miami. And if I lived here, I would be there every day. So
thanks,
there you go.
Nick. Mr. Jiménez?
You can follow Pancon Podcast on all the things at Pancon Podcast, not Pumpkin Podcast, not Panko Podcast. I forget what the auto transcription thing I was using recently.
Pantone podcast about color swatches.
Pantone Podcast. It's PANCON Podcast on all the social media things. If you want to support the thing we're doing here, it's patreon.com/DadeMag,
your money.
DADEMAG, patreon.com/DadeMag. Give us all your money. If you're in certain tiers, you get mugs, maybe coffee. There's all kinds of shit that you can get sent to you.
And if you pay, you can listen to the lightning round.
You can listen to exactly. There's bonus content, including for this episode. and also subscribe to our YouTube channel.
Apparently, we have a YouTube channel.
Yeah, it makes a
Peter
big
Santamaria
difference.
watches it in his weird layer of work all the time. It's very strange. Peter is a strange man. I love him. He's a strange man. Also a Columbus grad. Peace.
Adelante.
And we're out.